by electronic means through WebEx Webinar, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. Participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx, which is moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may watch on YouTube. My name is Bruce Mullock, and panelists today are Peter Reid, Yim Chan, and Zahir Bayat. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting via computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone. And they have the option of participating via video or audio only. All participants will automatically be muted on entry. When an item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. We ask that you also mute your devices until you're called upon to speak. Those participating by video will be temporarily upgraded to panelist status when their item is being heard. As a panelist, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during your 5-minute allowed speaking time. At all other times, your video will be disabled and you will be reinstated as an attendee. Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. Members of the public and applicants are not allowed to use share screen or any other panelist controls during a video appearance. The host will remove you from the panelist role if you fail to respect this instruction. I will now proceed to the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. It is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act, 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for, number 1, variances from the provisions of the zoning that apply to property. 2, permission to extend or to alter lawful non-conforming uses. And 3, consents to sever property in order to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on a particular application must submit a written request for a decision by email. And please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address, because the Committee of Adjustment and TLAB, Toronto Local Appeal Body, will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email only. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, you may be able to appeal the decision to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, or in some limited circumstances, to the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, the provincial government recently amended the Planning Act and generally removed the rights of third parties to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. As of November 28, 2022, only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and specified persons and public bodies as defined in the Planning Act are permitted to appeal decisions. Appeal instructions appear at the bottom of the committee's decision. I will call each item in the order that it is listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentation, if requested by the committee. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are invited to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee, and I will comment to you as you are approaching the 5-minute mark. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name, address, and remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first and may be asked to make a presentation to the committee. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised to ensure the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Then, individuals either in support of or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have finished their presentation. Once all speakers are finished, the applicant or the agent has the opportunity to rebut, but only to those issues that were raised by the speakers. And that'll mark the end of discussion. The application will then be taken into committee for a decision. Panel members and staff, are there any declarations of interest for items on this time slot? Seeing none, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, have you received any requests for deferral?
Mr. Chair, none for this afternoon.
None for this afternoon.
None for this afternoon.
Thank you. And are there any files to be closed?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no.
We'll now go to the agenda. Starting with item number 21, 98 Hogarth Ave. On this application, before the panel are the materials submitted at the time of application. There are previous decisions by the committee in 2021 and 2022 which affect this property. There's an arborist report and a letter of clearance from Urban Forestry. There is email correspondence from Community Planning of the City Planning Department. And there's a staff report from Urban Forestry. Correspondence received includes correspondence in concern from 96 Hogarth, 99 Hogarth, 103 Hampton, 137 Wolfrey, 88 and 105 Hogarth. And there is correspondence in opposition from 100 Hogarth, from Sam Florio, and also from Diane Moscow. So, moderator, we'll ask you to have the first speaker join us. First agent.
Yes, my name is Joe Dome, 133 Torresdale Avenue, agent for the owner.
Good afternoon to you. Okay. Mr. Dome, you have 5 minutes to address your application to the committee. Go ahead.
Yes, the application before you today is quite straightforward, and I would just like to clarify that no changes are being made from the prior approval, only having the east side yard setback now properly identified as per the new survey and zoning review. I was brought onto this application recently, and I understand the history of this application, the negotiations that were made with the neighbors. In the neighbor letters that were posted, the primary request is for confirmation that no changes are being made to what was previously agreed upon and approved at committee, which is reasonable. And this is confirmed. And again, the proposal before you today is just for confirmation of the existing 0.29 meter east side yard setback as identified. And it's in character with the setbacks on the street. Furthermore, planning has no concerns with the application. They've only added the condition that the decision be tied to the drawings. And overall, we feel this application is reasonable and minor in nature. I'd be happy to answer any further questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Any questions at this time, panel, or shall we hear from the speakers? Let's hear from the first speaker, please, moderator.
My name is Wayne Bowler, and I'm at 96 Hogarth Avenue. And since no changes are proposed to the previously approved plans for the building, I cede my time.
Okay, thank you very much. Moderator?
Robert, you've been unmuted.
Me.
Turn yours off, please.
Hi, Robert. If you have more than one device operating, please mute the other one.
Yeah, I've dealt with that. So I would prefer to switch with my wife, who also submitted at the same time. And she would, the way we arranged we were going to speak, she would go ahead of me, Elizabeth Mitchell.
Elizabeth, you've been unmuted.
Am I on? Is that acceptable to the board? I can't hear anybody now.
Yes, you are. You're now with the board. State your name, please.
My name is Elizabeth Mitchell, and my husband and I are joint owners of 88 Hogarth Avenue.
Okay, very good. You have 5 minutes to address your concerns to the panel. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I want to be sure that the panel understands the history of this proceeding because we do not, I think we're listed as concerned, but in fact, we're joining 100 Hogarth in its objection saying that it should be, this variant should be refused, even though the applicant is now prepared to, has said that they're committed to honoring the settlement that was reached once before, which was in number two proceeding before the Committee of Adjustments. So this property goes back to, problem goes back to 2020 when there was a sale to the current Royal Homes builder. And that builder replaced a very small wooden framed house with a very large overbuilt structure that they initially tried to pass off as a renovation, and the building department didn't let them. And it has been in an unfinished, unsightly, unsafe state ever since. And the current, in our submissions dated March 29th, we've included a couple of photographs of what this property has looked like since 2021. So on page, I think it's page 3 of that submissions from us. That is my neighbors. That's 100 Hogarth you've got there. Our Robert Mansell and Elizabeth Mitchell submissions were dated March 29th, 23. And on page 3 of that, we've got, there we go. On the left-hand side, you can see the rear view of the structure that's been there ever since, the unsightly condition of it. On the right-hand side is the unsightly condition of it from the front. So when when matter first came on for hearing the first time back in 21, there was a request for variances on the height of the building, the depth of the building, the floor space of the building, and the side yard setback. That led to a refusal by the board in the first board decision, which is dated December 8th, 2021, and it was refused because the applicant tried to do amendments at the eve of the hearing, and it was disallowed from proceeding with the amendments. So the same applicant came back in 2022, and we've attached that board decision to that one as well. And again, this time the application was changed. The overall height of the building was addressed, the depth of the building, and the floor space of the building was addressed. The neighbors got very involved in this. We had a lot of neighborhood objection, and we organized so that we could have settlement discussions with the builder about the proposal, and we went ahead with the amended plans and did not object. Those dealt with height, depth, and floor space. Nothing was said at that time about the side yard setback, even though in order to maintain this building, this experienced builder knew it needed that side yard setback. So in our view, the time to put that on the table was when we were negotiating. We got significant changes to the original plans with which took into account concerns about how high and the building was and how deep it was. The depth was pulled back to match 100 HOGARTH. The height of the third floor extension was pulled back, and I appreciate we all dealt in good faith, we thought, but it turns out the builder was not operating in good faith. He had an obligation to also deal with that side yard, and by not putting that side yard setback on the table at the appropriate time, he denied 100 HOGARTH and the other neighbors an opportunity to say it was not appropriate and get some concessions, changes, something. We were successful in our negotiations, and it's inexcusable that he didn't deal with that at that time. These side yard setbacks are something that the committee has to realize. In downtown neighborhoods, the distance between two houses is already small. For safety reasons, we're allowing ease of access to allow people to go between houses. I think I'm getting in, I think am I cut off?
Yes, you have used up your time now. So thank you for that. Panel members, any questions for this speaker? I'm not hearing any. Let's go back then to the applicant, who will have a chance to comment in rebuttal on what the speaker said.
Yes, I understand the concerns of the neighbor, but I would like to just reiterate that the house thing, it's not moving closer than what was agreed upon. And regarding the side yard setback, I should clarify that it seems to have been incorrectly identified on the original survey that was from 1978. And then when applying for a permit, then the owner was requested to get a new survey, which I then correctly identified that setback. So I believe it was incorrectly identified at around 0.45 meters, and the correct measurement is 0.29, which is what is being requested here. So, overall, I would just like to confirm that that nothing is changing from previous.
Okay, thank you. Questions, panel? Mr. Byatt, go ahead. Mr. Byatt, you need to unmute.
Sorry about that again. Just a quick question. I'm looking at, I think it's the site plan A0, and looking at the site plan, do I read it correctly in that the new structure has been essentially built directly above the old structure, both front and back, both the piece at the back and the existing piece at the front?
I believe so.
So the side yard setback that you're requesting now is one that was already established, or is this somewhere in the construction something that's new?
I believe this is the existing walls of the previous house were at this distance. Basically the prior survey just for some reason did not accurately identify. I don't believe the walls were moved any closer. It was just an error.
Would this be correcting a technical error?
Yeah.
Okay. I do recall this application previously. Because of the way it was handled by presumably the builder or the owner of the property. So I'm quite aware of some of the concerns that were raised at the time. But thank you. Thank you.
Any further questions? Mr. Byatt, go ahead.
Sorry, Chair, there was one more, if I may.
Go ahead.
It had to do with the third-story balcony. From what I can see on the
Okay, Mr. Byatt, we appear to have lost you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, perhaps Zahir was going to refer to some privacy screening?
I imagine that was where he was heading. And Mr. Byatt, if you can hear me, we have lost you both audio and visual.
Chair,
Go ahead, Mr. Reed.
while we're waiting for Zahir to come back, were there other speakers waiting to speak?
Have we been able to, no, there's just the one on this one, isn't there?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we've already heard from the other speakers.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, pardon me, thanks.
Okay, Zahir is back. Zahir, we missed you there for about a minute. So remember to turn off your video when you're talking because it helps the. Okay, we hear you now.
I hope. So I was just referring to the plan drawing that we see on the screen. The balcony doesn't have any privacy screens attached. I'd like to see privacy screens on both sides.
Okay. Applicant?
If I can add just one point there. I believe in listening to the previous hearing, I believe the neighbors were actually requesting that there not be privacy screening attached. Perhaps you want to go confirm that with the neighbors as well. If that's, it seems to me that that privacy screening would impact shadows.
Well, the issue of overlook probably outweighs the issue of shadows. So we're just giving you the option to let us know whether you're interested or not. The panel may, in its wisdom, impose privacy screening, but we're wondering what you think about it.
Yes. Yes, if the panel imposes privacy screens, that would be okay for us. That was just the, I remember hearing that was a point raised by the neighbor.
Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, any further questions here, or I think we're ready to move into committee on this one and move to a motion. Mr. Reed, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Just to the point of the privacy screening, I seem to remember that from last time. I think I've heard this this application twice, and I seem to recall that the neighbors would have preferred to not have privacy screening, just to lessen the bulk of that addition. But I'm not sure if my memory is 100% on that.
Oh, okay, the neighbors, okay. Well, use your best recollection on that in your judgment, and that's how we'll decide it.
Okay. Well, I think I'm happy to. I think that this is kind of resolving a technical issue that came about as a part of an incorrect survey, and I think that this has gone through a lot of iterations, and what's being proposed is not different than what the compromise was between the applicant and the neighbors. So for that reason, I move approval of this application subject to the community planning condition and urban forestry condition 2 and 3.
Thank you very much. That is seconded by Ms. Chan. And we have quorum here, so let's carry on. Moved and seconded to approve as described. All those in favor, please show hands. And that's a unanimous vote of 3, Mr. Byatt being absent for this vote. Carries the motion, and the application is approved. Number 22, 934 to 936 Eastern Avenue. We have the submitted materials. There are photographs of the subject property. There's a cover letter from the agent, December 23. There is a staff report from TRCA, and there is communication from Toronto Transit. So let's have the applicant join us, please.
Catherine, you've been unmuted and you may turn on your video.
Hello.
Hello there.
Our engineer should have been the person talking to this as well. I don't know if he's been.
If I may ask you, please, just state your name. For the record, state your name.
Yes, I'm Catherine Hill.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So our architect is supposed to be doing the talking on behalf. He is the one who applied and is working on our behalf.
Okay. Panel members.
I mean, I can also speak to it, but.
Well, we'll see if there are any questions for you. Any questions, panel?
Sure.
Not seeing any questions? No. Is there anything in particular we should know about the application? Any one thing that you could tell us briefly?
About the application that we're just looking to get to convert the building into office space.
Okay. Okay then. Ms. Chan, go ahead.
Yes, so in the case, is this already a non-conforming use, the current condition, right?
It's always been office space, so nothing's really changing.
I thought it is an industrial and mechanized and office is used. Is this a non-conforming, lawful non-conforming use already? So
yeah, if you can unmute Chris Prototo, he's our architect, and he can talk more to that.
Well, I don't know that.
Is that possible?
No, I don't
Hello.
know if we need to go to that extreme. Do you want us to try to track down this person, Ms.?
He's on now.
I'm unmuted
standing
now. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm the applicant and the agent for this project.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were standing by.
Sorry, no problem. My name's Chris Bertado. I'm an architect for this project. So the subject building, it was originally designed for industrial use in the first place with some second floor offices. And the building has, in that part, been in that use from 1981 to the present day. The previous tenant had been using the building for office uses exclusively. There's a lot of office buildings, or there's a lot of office uses in the neighborhood as well. I believe it's a non-conforming use. It's in an R zone, so that's why we're seeking out the variance, as the owners purchased it thinking they'd be able to use it as an office building, or continue using it as an office building, as well as citing the parking deficiency there. So yes, they would like to continue to use it as an office space.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Panel members, I think we're ready to take this one into committee. Ms. Chan, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm ready for motion. I think that in the area, and I don't think the office use is in contradiction of what the whole area that is a mix of offices and industrial buildings. And I do not think it will create any kind of negative impact. So I will move for approval with no conditions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Does that have a second? Mr. Reed seconds. It is therefore moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor, show of hands. And that vote is unanimous. Motion carries, application approved. Number 23 is 42 Dingwall. The only materials before the panel are the submitted materials and a tree inventory plan. So let's go to the agent, please.
Good day. This is Frank Minieri. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay.
We hear you well, Frank.
Good.
Yes. Good afternoon.
Okay, wonderful.
Panel.
Good afternoon. Okay.
Any questions for the agent panel? Not hearing any. Is anyone ready with a motion to move forward? Mr. Reed, please.
Thanks, Chair. This is a really reasonable application, just extending the third floor out a bit on the back of the house. And the only variance being requested is FSI. I think this is a common type of addition in the neighborhood, and I see no negative impact coming from it. So I move approval with no conditions.
Thank you. Mr. Byatt seconds. Moved and seconded to approve. All in favor? Vote is unanimous. Motion carries. Application approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. 24 is 82 Gough Avenue. We have before us submitted materials. There is a revised zoning notice. There are 4 photographs, trees, and presentation materials from the agent March 29. There's email from City Planning and staff reports from Urban Forestry and from Toronto Transit. In opposition, there are 6 form letters signed by the owners and occupants of 96, 98, 102, 108A, Gough, and 811A and 811B, Carla. So let's bring on the agent.
Members of the committee, my name is Tay Rook, planner for the owners of the property at 82 Gough Avenue.
Good afternoon. Okay. Questions, panel? Mr. Byatt. Unmute Mr. Byatt, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just relocated myself, so hopefully won't have a problem again. Just a question with regard to variance number 1. The soft landscaping that you're calling for in the rear, can you talk to it a bit? Because 85 to 44 is quite a significant reduction.
Yes, sir. Actually, as the chair, I wasn't quite, I didn't realize that you didn't want a presentation, but I am open to providing a presentation for the variances. However, just to answer your question, nothing has changed from the original plan as it relates to the rear landscaping area. It was a mistake by the original zoning review, and we caught it, and the zoning reviewer agreed that it's actually 63% that should be provided, that is provided at the rear. So that's why that revised notice zoning review was provided. However, in terms of the landscaping area, what you find is that from a rear yard perspective and overall perspective, this is a very tightly knit neighborhood. You have an area where it's Danforth Avenue to the south, Pape Avenue to the east, with Pape Station immediately to the east. So in terms of the characteristic of this neighborhood, it's a very tightly knit neighborhood in terms of building setbacks, massing, heights, and also landscape area in the front and the rear. You'll note that planning staff has reviewed this application, has provided comments, and indicated as part of the approval of the application for variances that the landscaping be at 63% as indicated by the revised zoning review, which is correct. And we have no issues with that. But with that being said, this is an application that seeks to provide a third-story addition in addition to a secondary suite on the basement level, in addition to a laneway suite at the rear. And once again, from the presentation materials that I have provided to the committee, you'll see pictures at the end of the slides where you have a picture, slide number 6, or that one, that's fine. That's 81 Gulf Avenue, directly across the street from the subject site. And in terms of the way the proposal reflects in terms of massing, heights, and in terms of actually even the front entrance to the basement unit or the secondary unit, it would be very similar to what we're proposing on this particular property.
Okay,
in terms of the height and
excuse me, I'm going to stop you there because the question was about soft landscaping, and I think you've answered that. And
yes, sir. I want
to come back to variance number 1 because I think we need to do something formal here. So, minor variance number 1 right now on the notice that the committee is dealing with is showing 44.3%. And I know that there is a planning condition saying to move that to 63. So I think that's what we should officially do. Is that your intent also?
Yes, sir. It should be 63%.
63%, and the related square meterage is 48.56 meters squared.
Correct, sir.
Correct, okay. So we are dealing with an amended application here, having amended minor variance number 1 according to planning. The other variances, I assume, stand as they show.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions, panel? Ms. Chan, go ahead.
Yes. Yes, so I just wonder if you can revise variance number 1 to that percentage, because your backyard, your rear yard is covered by the deck, and also the whole area is already landscaped, right? So how do you achieve that?
It's just what's left in terms of soft landscaping, even with the deck. It's 63%. That is the correct number.
So the 63% is actually what you have been proposing.
Correct. That's been the original plan, and it was a mistake by the zoning examiner, which was corrected in their March 13th revised zoning review.
Oh, okay, understand. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay then, there are no further questions. Panel, I think we can take this application into committee. The amended application, and move to a motion, if anyone is ready. Mr. Byte, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I think given the amendment that we've just introduced, I think this is an application that is quite supportable. It's also the context of this particular proposal, given the way it's completed. So I don't see any issues with it. I believe a couple of conditions that are attached to it. One is forestry number 1. I believe there's a TTC condition because I believe that the proximity of the property to TTC facilities. And I seem to have a planning condition listed as well, but I'm not sure if there is one. I can't remember off the top of my head now. So there may be a planning condition as well.
Opaque screening.
Oh, it's a issue, right?
It shows opaque
The north and south edges. Sorry, I just tried to help. It's on the north and south edges on the 3rd floor balcony, the rear balcony. That's the planning condition. Yeah.
So I think
those are the 3 conditions that are attached to this.
Okay, very good. I think we've got it. We do have it. All right. So the amended application that motion needs a second. It is seconded, Mr. Reed. So moved and seconded to approve the amended application. All in favor, please. Unanimous vote. Motion carries. Application approved. Number 25. '93 Arlington Avenue. Before us, we have submitted materials, plus a tree protection plan, plus 2 photographs of trees on the site. Let's have the agent join us.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the homeowner will be representing herself.
Very good. Just state your name.
My name is Corinne Geller. I'm the owner of 93 Arlington.
Very good. Good afternoon. Questions, panel? I have one question for you. That is with respect to the height of the main front wall. Is that it's already fairly high with respect to other properties on the street? Will the front wall height increase?
No, so it's just filling in the back of the 3rd floor, and it won't even be as high as the existing roof.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further questions, let's move to a motion. Mr. Chan, go ahead.
Yeah, I can support this application because even with the addition, I don't think it is as steep as just the adjacent properties. And I think that the increase in GFA is justifiable because they're not really increasing too much of the massing. And there aren't any letter of concerns or opposition, and there aren't any other variances. So I would support it, and I move a motion for approval with no condition.
Second on that, Mr. Byett. Moved and seconded approval. Those in favor? Unanimous vote. Carries the motion. Approved. Thank you. Number 26. (182) Eastwood Drive. We are looking at submitted materials plus photographs of the subject property. And I'll ask you to put up the photographs, please, because they do tell. There's a second photograph. That's the one. Just if you leave it there for a second, and we'll ask the agent to join us, please.
members. My name is Bruno Lott from Mechanical Engineering at 1649 St. Clair Avenue West, and I'm representing the owner on this application.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Panel, questions for this applicant? I have a question for you, applicant, with respect to the view we're looking at now. That, as we look down this driveway to the very front of the house, there is a parking pad made of pavers. I'm not sure that shows on the site plan. Is it your intention to tear that out?
Mr. Chair, this goes beyond a little bit of the application because that's city property. So if you look at our site plan, actually the property line comes very close to actually the house. So that's city property. I'm not able to tell you for how long this situation has been like this. I just know that the homeowners have been there for 17 years, and this is pretty much the condition since they moved in.
Okay. So I thought it might be city property, and now you've confirmed that. So there's a pad there.
Yes, it is.
There's
Indeed.
a pad there that's been there forever, which the city may...
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Correct. My guess is that the design of the street at a certain point in time was intended to be there, and all of a sudden they just placed curbs and they just neutralized the use of this driveway, which is pretty much where my client tend to use it as access to their home.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Any further questions, panel? If there are none, then Mr. Reid, go ahead.
Chair, thank you, Chair. Just in regards to the rear deck, it's raised off the ground, and I'm just wondering if there's if the neighboring property, the neighbors have any concerns about overlook or that height of the deck.
No, through you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Peter, yes, this is actually an existing condition. So in a nutshell, what we're trying to achieve here is just demolish the existing and do it brand new, because it's been there for past 17 years. It's pretty much everything that you see here is just a re and re. But because we don't omit a couple of these situations, but this is almost an exact same. The only difference is that existing little rear addition, we are making like about a foot longer just to align with the neighbors. But the neighbors are on board, and yeah, everybody's on board. Nothing will change visually from what it is today.
Okay, understood. Thanks.
Anyone ready with a motion? We can take it into a committee now for a motion. Mr. Reid, please.
Thanks, Chair. I think the variances are quite minor, and particularly because they're just small changes from what's currently existing. And I think that appears to be working well within the neighborhood. So I'm happy to move a motion for approval with no conditions.
Thank you. Seconded, Mr. Byatt. Moved and seconded. Approval. All in favor, please. Unanimous vote. Motion carries. Application approved. Thank you. 27 is 118 Runnymede Road. We've got the submitted materials before us. There's comment from Transportation, correspondence in support from 116 Runnymede, and there is a petition in support signed by 34 persons on Runnymede, Beresford, DeForest, and Kennedy. There is opposition from 110 Runnymede, Aaron McCracken, and Kyla Sutherland. Let's have the agent join us.
Good afternoon, Sir Chair and committee members. Can you hear me okay?
Very clearly, yes. You're good. And you have 5
Thank you,
minutes.
sir.
May I ask your name, please?
Yes, it is David Eagleman. I'm a senior planner at Design Plan Services. My address is 900, the East Mall, Suite 300.
You have 5 minutes to present your application. Go ahead.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Just before I give my presentation, I would like to amend the public notice.
Let's do that
If
carefully, okay?
the committee, yes. So I would, through you, Mr. Chair, just if the committee is willing to indulge me, I would like to eliminate variance number 3 to address concerns expressed from transportation services.
Very good. Okay.
Okay.
We're dealing now with an amended application. Ella, variance number 3 having been removed at your request. Okay.
Thank you, sir. So through you, Mr. Chair, before getting into the variances, I would like to note that we have consulted extensively with the surrounding neighbors regarding this application, as you have mentioned when introducing the application, and have obtained 34 signatures in support. Specifically, the immediately adjacent residential neighbor at 116 Runnymede Road is in support of the proposal. And I am not aware of any concerns or objections from any city departments, including planning staff, other than the concerns from transportation services, which have now been resolved considering I've eliminated the only transportation-related variance. I will also note that no new construction is proposed, as the proposal is only to permit a commercial use within an existing residential detached dwelling. So regarding the variances, variance number 1 and 2 now being the only variances, both pertain to the proposed commercial use on the ground floor within the existing dwelling. The proposed use on the ground floor is a beautician, so somewhere where that provides services related to hair, nails, things like that. And it is, that type of use is a permitted use as a home occupation within a residential detached dwelling within the zone that is applicable to this property. And as a result of this, if the proposed beautician use on the ground floor was to be operated by the owner of the property, which in this case it is not, who also lives on the second floor, the use that we are proposing today would be permitted as a home occupation within this dwelling. The ground floor of the existing dwelling has operated as a commercial use for over 15 years at this property, although albeit on the basis that it was operated by the owner, and thus, as I noted, this proposal is only to permit a permitted home occupation use that is not operated by the owner of the dwelling. I will also note, just in regards to the context of this house specifically, it is the first home on Runnymede south of Bloor Street and is directly adjacent to a commercial building to the north, which is the commercial building you see to the north on the site plan right now. And that building is a building which fronts onto Bloor Street. And Bloor Street is a designated avenue within the city's official plan, and there are mixed-use commercial and residential buildings along Bloor Street, as well as regular transit service. Specifically, the subject property is located approximately 40 meters from bus stops, which provide north-south service along Runnymede Road, and is 60 meters from bus stops, which provide east-west service along Bloor Street, and is also only 140 meters from the Runnymede subway station. So considering the subject property's access to public transit facilities, potential patrons of the proposed ground floor use will be able to access the business without the need for vehicular or parking facilities on the site, and serves as mitigation for any concerns regarding more street parking on Runnymede Road. Further, the proposed ground floor use, being a beautician, is typically a business that operates on an appointment-only basis, and as such, the amount of patrons at the business will be limited at any given time. As well, as per an analysis we have conducted of properties within an approximate 200-meter radius, there are 7 dwellings within residential zones that contain ground floor commercial uses. Now, while these dwellings may be permitted as of right within the ground floor because they are considered home occupations, the proposal maintains the intent and purpose of the bylaw by providing a ground floor commercial use in an existing building with no exterior alterations,
I
and
shall
where
ask
a
you,
ground floor
I
commercial
shall ask you to
use-
make your final comments now, please.
Yes. And where a ground floor commercial use has existed for the last 15 years. So based on the provided justification, I am of the opinion that this proposal fits in with the existing and planned context, is consistent with what has existed on the property for over a decade, as well as what exists in the neighborhood and along Bloor Street. And for these reasons, I believe the application represents good planning and meets the 4 tests under section 45(1).
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Okay, panel, why don't we hear from the person standing by and then come back to the applicant? We'll ask the registered person to join us by stating their name.
Aaron, you've been unmuted and you may turn on your video.
Afternoon, my name is Aaron McCracken. I'm the owner and resident of 110 Runnymede Road, just a few houses away from the applicant's property. This is my first time ever making an objection to a municipal matter in Toronto, and the reason is simple. I have seen and lived with the consequences of having multiple personal services businesses operate in this neighboring residence. After these businesses opened in September 2022, and up until this application was filed earlier this year, we face the daily prospect of having the sidewalk blocked by illegally parked cars in front of the applicant's property. I can recall at least a dozen times that my children had to walk on the road. Runnymede's a busy street. As you know, it's a TTC bus route. And this is unacceptable to me. And I want to highlight the specific concerns behind this, and I'll respect the amendment that has been made already. The first is that there are multiple businesses operating from this location. As I detailed in my objection letter, there are at least 5 websites, and there are at least 8 estheticians listed as providing services at this location. This is vastly different than the property's historical zoning under the home occupation zoning provision, where the homeowner operates a business, typically one person seeing one customer. In this case, there are multiple businesses seeing multiple customers at once, and I submit that this is not a minor variance. I understand that this is adjacent to a commercial property, but it's clearly a residence. Visually, it looks like the other residences in the neighborhood. We need to draw the line of where residents start and businesses end. And when visually you look at this property, it's clear to see that this belongs on the residence. I object to the fact that this is consistent with what has existed on the property. It is clearly not. There has been one single business operate where one professional has operated. There has not been many professionals operating at once. And that to me is the biggest concerning factor. I'll retract my concerns about parking as that's been taken care of, but I do want to lay out my final concern. There are several vacant properties currently available for lease on Bloor Street within a short walking distance that are already correctly zoned for personal services businesses. I see no benefit to the city or to our neighborhood in permitting this variance while there's many suitable locations that remain vacant nearby. Those are my comments. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions, panel, for this speaker? You live close enough. You're about 4 doors down the road. Can you comment at all on the kind of customer traffic you've seen arriving and departing from the subject site?
I would say it is generally quite busy in the early evening hours between 5 p.m. to 7 to 8 p.m. That's when we've seen the most issues related to parking and related to the sidewalk being blocked. I guess that's a time at the end of work where people go and get seen and get done whatever they get done. So I would say there are ebbs and flows, but certainly in the early evenings, are many customers have been visiting the location.
That's the busy time of day. Okay, interesting. All right, thank you. Panel members, other questions? Okay, then let's go back to the applicant, who shall have a chance to comment and speak in rebuttal to issues raised by the speaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. McCracken, he did acknowledge that we eliminated the front yard parking variance, but he did, in his response to your question and also in his chief presentation, he did bring up the issue of the sidewalk being blocked from illegal parking. And that is not a matter that is dealt with through the Committee of Adjustment process, specifically because we have eliminated that front yard parking variance, and also the fact that illegal parking is a matter that has to be dealt with through traffic enforcement. So that's all I can say regarding that issue. And I'll just reiterate that again, this is a bit of a unique context because it is the first dwelling right off and adjacent to the commercial uses off of Bloor Street. So it is really not attracting any traffic, pedestrian or otherwise, into the interior of the neighborhood. Pedestrians or any patrons of the business can come directly off of Bloor Street, which again is an avenue within the city's official plan. There are many commercial uses along Bloor Street and directly adjacent to this property. And through on the site plan, it is shown that there are 4 styling stations. So theoretically, there is room for 4 professionals to be working at the business. And because of the nature of the business, each professional would only have 1 client at a time. So at any given moment, there would be a minimum of 8 people at inside the dwelling, and perhaps no more than 15 to 20 people at any given time. And again, I'm not aware of any other proposed business that's currently operating out of the existing dwelling. It is a proposed use within the dwelling, and it is one business that is to be located in the ground floor, which again has existed as a ground floor commercial use for the last 15 to 20 years. So, and I do, while I acknowledge and appreciate Mr. McCracken's comments, I personally, in my professional opinion, do not see how this would impact him in terms of his enjoyment of his property, because the patrons would be accessing the business inside this dwelling directly off Bloor Street. And in my opinion, this application meets the 4 tests and is good planning.
Thank you very much. Panel, questions for the applicant?
Chair, if I'm...
Okay, Mr. Reed.
I'm sorry I'm having technical problems, but I'm keeping the video off so that I can try to minimize.
Yes, okay.
Minimize my...
Okay, so here, just stand by.
I just have...
So here, stand by, Mr. Reed.
Sure thing.
Stand by,
Thanks,
please.
Chair. I have a question for the applicant related to the parking, and I'm glad to see variance 3 be removed. And I know that you've talked about enforcement not being the mandate of the committee, but I think it's going to be a tempting situation for people just to use that space if it's still there. So I wonder if you'd be open to having a condition with planters or some sort of other obstacle to prevent parking in the front yard.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that does sound like a reasonable condition. However, if I may ask the committee if I can take a moment to speak to my client and confirm if that is acceptable, I would very much appreciate that.
Well, just hang on a second before you do that. Is the sidewalk is there a curb cut on the sidewalk now? Or how do cars, is there a curb cut? Or do cars have to climb a curb to get, there's a curb cut. Is that curb cut going to be removed?
Through you, Mr. Chair, sorry, I meant yes, as in I can answer that. So there is a curb cut, but it doesn't run, there's an existing shared mutual driveway between 118 and 116. So there is a curb cut to allow access for that shared driveway, but the curb cut does not extend to allow access to the parking pad. Now, so yeah, you can see in that picture there, that is on the screen currently, the curb cut does not extend to where that paved portion of the front yard is located.
The photograph tells the story, okay. All right, well, if you want to talk to, the committee might want to impose something in its own wisdom, but if you want to, we can set the application aside and return to you in about 5 or 8 minutes after we do the next application while you speak to the owner. That's fine. Before you go off and do that, I wanted to ask you about the scale. You know, you keep citing the fact this has been 15 years, this use, but you also said that the person who owned the business lived upstairs. So that tells me it was one person who lived upstairs and then practiced the home occupation downstairs. It's the scale now. We're now talking about, I understand it's 4 estheticians with their respective clients. So the scale is much larger than in the past. Is that not true?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would agree that previously it is my understanding that the commercial use operating on the ground floor for the last 15 to 20 years has been a home occupation and was operated by the owner and the resident of the dwelling. However, I don't necessarily agree that the scale is much larger, because I would say that, you know, it is larger, but to what extent, I wouldn't categorize it as much larger. And I would also just point back to the fact that I mentioned that this dwelling is the first dwelling in the neighborhood directly off of Bloor Street and directly adjacent to, you know, a more intensive commercial use along Bloor Street.
Oh, okay, well, I can put it simply then, is when the scale of business quadruples, is that large or small? In my view, it's quite large, you know. So anyway, we will now excuse you to make that connection. We're going to put this application to the side for a few minutes. We shall return to you, and we'll go on to the next application, number 28. So, number 28 is (39) Wiley Avenue. On this application, we have submitted materials, an arborist and tree inventory report, presentation materials from the agent, 29 March. This is a staff report from Urban Forestry. There are 12 form letters in support from addresses on Wiley and also 42 Inwood. And there's opposition correspondence from 40 Inwood. So let's have the agent join us, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Franco Romano here on behalf of the owner, 20 Sport Credit.
Good afternoon to you. You have 5 minutes to present your application. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Thank you for staff to bring up my slides. Appreciate that. So on slide 1, what we're going to see is a subject property, and in gray, we'll see what currently exists. So that's the footprint that currently exists. Towards the left is the existing dwelling. It's a bungalow. And towards the right, that's the back of the yard, and that is the existing one half of a semi-detached garage. That garage is attached to a garage at 37 Wiley, which is at the bottom of that site plan. The proposal is to construct a second-story addition over top of that existing footprint, as well as to extend at the second floor to the rear and to the side. The one side on the bottom of that page, those are both cantilevered, so that allows for the driveway to continue to be used off of Wiley to access the garage, and for the deck that's attached at the ground floor level to be also used, and that would be covered by the second story. The rear yard setback is in excess, so it's larger than what the zoning bylaw requires. And what I'm showing here are images that illustrate the existing rear yard landscaping condition. There's basically no landscaping in the rear yard today. There's a deck, there's pavement clearly to the garage. And the proposal is to remove much of that deck in the backyard and replace that with soft landscaping. So while there is a soft landscaping variance, 43%, whereas 50% is required, that is an improvement. What is being added is that actual 43%. So the soft landscaping is being increased. In terms of lot coverage, the existing lot coverage includes the dwelling and the garage. The existing lot coverage is 48.5%. So it's already above the 35%. And what's being proposed is that second story cantilever, which raises the lot coverage to 62%. So it's actually not ground level that's being covered. It's cantilevered at the second story level. What we do also see is in photo number 2, the existing deck that's attached to the dwelling, and there is a proposed deck that's going to be similarly attached to the dwelling. That is off of the ground floor. The zoning examiner has identified the basement as a first floor, and that's why that deck is being considered a deck at or above the second story of the dwelling. That also is the reason why floor space index is at 1.1 times the area of the lot, because the basement is being included as part of floor space index. Otherwise, the over 2 floors, conventional floors, the floor space index is 0.81, and that is consistent with pretty much every other 2-story dwelling in this neighborhood and on the street, if not larger. Floor space index. The front yard setback is an existing front yard setback, and the side yard setbacks at the top, so that's the north, that is an existing side yard setback, so that's being obviously added onto with the building addition. And on the south side, the 0.6 meters is only for the cantilever. The ground level is being maintained. So I think that summarizes most of the variances. The wall height is a fairly straightforward one. It's for a 2-story building, flat roof, and the front yard stairs are shown, and they don't project into the boulevard, nor do they interfere with landscaping in the front. Landscaping in the front is more than what's required. So subject to any questions, I'd submit that the variance application is minor in nature and creates no adverse impact. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Panel members, we have a speaker standing by. Shall we go ahead and then come back? Let's do that. So, moderator, could we have the registered speaker please join us?
Hello, everyone. My name is Sam Jazieri Moradas. I'm the owner and occupant of 40 Inwood, along with my wife, Julia. Can you all hear me well?
Somehow we hear your voice, but it's foggy. I don't know whether it's
Is this
the mic.
better if I change my microphone?
If you came closer, or yeah, try different.
And how about now? Is this better?
It is somewhat better, yes.
Okay, I'm trying a few different things. I have a few different microphones, so sorry for that. Is this better if I talk louder?
No, louder doesn't help. More slowly would help.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Please interrupt me if you lose me at any point. and I appreciate the committee's time and everyone's time here. I have written a letter of opposition as well, and I have reviewed the form letters in support. And I want to start with the categorical imperative, or the universalizability principle, which I'm sure the committee is well aware of. And, in summary, if we do approve something, then we should be ready to approve that for everyone else as well. And my proposition today is my opposition today rather is around the 1.1 times area of the lot. That is my largest concern from this homeowner, specifically around the cantilevered second addition. And I'd like to propose to the committee that the documents that were provided to the neighboring houses actually did not effectively illustrate the extent of the cantilever. Just a moment ago, we had Mr. Romano sharing a slide 1, where we clearly had that second story cantilever highlighted in blue. That document was not shared with the neighborhood. We also had slide 16. I see you're on page 14. We had slide 16 on our screen a few moments ago. That also was not shared with or slide 14 shows it from the other side. That's helpful as well. It does not illustrate, this illustrates the extent of the cantilever, whereas the documents that were provided to the neighboring houses were not showing that clearly. I had to study the site plan very carefully, the physical version that was provided to me, and at no point did I see a label that said second floor cantilever. Even to this date, after reviewing the documents, I do not know the extent in terms of exact feet or meters, how many meters back that second floor goes. Now, if you hear if you heard my address, I'm from 40 Inwood. I'm the house directly behind 39 Wiley. This neighborhood is extremely jammed. It is extremely cluttered already. We have garages everywhere, and many of the houses have already paved roads or paved paths to the garage. We have decks. This house with a second floor cantilevering will be moving an unknown number of meters closer to my house in terms of the second floor. As of now, from my bedroom window, they can easily look into my bedroom window, and I can probably easily look into their home. Of course, we use blinds and curtains for these purposes, and we accept that when we join this neighborhood, and we're happy to be part of the neighborhood. However, having a cantilevered addition coming back another X unknown number of meters is something I'd like to speak against and be opposed to. If you review the 12 letters of support, at no point in those letters of support do they mention that the cantilevered addition is the thing that's driving or is the component that's driving the additional proportion to the square footage. The letters are all the exact same letter, and the homeowner went door to door to obtain those signatures. The homeowner actually knocked on my door, and unfortunately, the first thing they did was mislead me. The homeowner told me that they are not the home directly behind my house. It was very simple for me to just simply walk up to my backyard and see that they are, in fact, the home behind my house. Now, to avoid any conflict, I just smiled and said, "Thank you for stopping by, best of luck." However, I am uncertain if those letters in support were actually obtained under true premises, when I know that the first thing that the homeowner told me was that they are not the home behind my house, when they in fact are the home behind our house. So that is the gist of my opposition. If this house, the second floor, comes so close to my house, I would wonder what would happen.
I'll ask you to make your final comment now, please.
Thank you so much for the time. I'll finish that thought. I would wonder what would happen if I proposed the same thing with the same cantilevered addition, and how close would we be to each other at that point? And would that be an acceptable condition for our community? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Questions here, speaker for panel for this speaker? Not hearing any. Okay, then let's return to the applicant, who will have an opportunity now to speak in rebuttal to issues raised by that speaker. comment upon them. Applicant?
Yes, thank you. If staff can bring up my first slide, please. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you kindly. A few points. Number one, the building length with the second story addition is 15 meters in length. So that is 2 meters shorter than the 17 meters that's permitted. And it is 4 meters shorter than where the building could extend into the backyard. So the proposal is less than the planned context. And if we look at the existing context, you know, the location map that this Committee of Adjustment circulated, and even on this plan, number 43 is pretty close to what is being proposed as a two-story, full two-story from the ground to the top. It's slightly shorter, but it's pretty close. That number 43 has a floor space index that is larger than what's before this panel today, particularly when we're including the basement for floor space index. I had indicated that the basement is being included, and therefore we're going from the conventional two-story inclusion for floor area, which would amount to 0.81, whereas 0.75 is permitted, to 1.1 times. In terms of the overlook, there is no overlook on the number 40. So a couple of things. One, I asked the neighbor at number 37 to take a photograph from their second story window. And I appreciate that they are closer to Wiley, that second story window, but it's not substantially different. And that photograph is number 4A on the right-hand side in the middle. See that there's a garage and there's vegetation, and number 40 is beyond. I can't see that window, can't see into the window. If we look at what I had the owner do for the subject property is get on top of the roof. He agreed to do so. I told him I didn't want him to do it, but he got on top of the roof of the existing house and took a photograph looking to the backyard. That photograph is number 4B in the lower right. So we'll see the detached, or sorry, the one half of the semi-detached garage on the subject property is in the lower right of that photograph. And then just beyond that, there's the two mature trees, at least two mature trees. Number 40 is behind those trees. So even in the winter, there is screening. There is no effect on those trees by the development. So those trees are remaining. There is no overlook. So in terms of the existing and the planned context, what is being proposed here is fully in line with what is found not only on Wiley, but in the surrounding area. And once again, I'll reiterate that the required rear yard setback is 9.4 meters, and the required rear yard setback is 6.9 meters, and the proposal has a rear yard setback of 9.39 meters. So it's substantially larger than what is required. And if we simply look at the next slide, at the bottom of that second slide, we're going to see a series of buildings that are next door, across the street, a few houses away, all 2 stories, some with integral below-grade garages, all at comparable and higher floor space indices, and also comparable building lengths. They undulate. So I would submit that what is being proposed here is very much in keeping with the existing character, with no unacceptable adverse impact. And thank you kindly for the ability to help in this matter.
Thank you very much. Okay, panel, questions for the applicant? I'm not hearing any questions, so we can take the application then into committee for discussion and a motion. Mr. Byte, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at this particular application, I don't see any issues with it. I think the owners, the agent has certainly indicated addressed all the concerns that were raised. What did impress me was the fact that this application includes the fact that they've got this very large existing wooden deck that's on the side of the garage that's going to be removed and turned into soft landscaping where soft landscaping didn't exist. So I see this as a positive change. I really don't have any issues with it. I don't believe there are any conditions attached. I'd be quite happy to move a motion to approve. I think it's forestry number 2, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's the only condition that. So with that, if my colleagues are okay with me putting forward a motion to approve, I'd be very happy to do it.
Very good. Is there a second? It is seconded. Ms. Chan. Moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, please show of hands. And that motion is carried by a unanimous vote, so the application is approved. Thank you. And we're going to backtrack now to number 27 to resume with that agent who's had an opportunity to confer with the owner. So I'll ask the agent for number 27 to join us once again, please.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I did have an opportunity to speak to the owner. He did provide some additional information. Just quickly in regards to your question, Mr. Chair, the owner did state that the ground floor of the existing building did previously operate as a music school before it was a chiropractic office, and there was multiple teachers there as well as music instruments, and when it was a chiropractic office, there were 3 professionals there. So just want to provide that additional information.
Thank you.
And then in regards to Mr. Reed's question on the conditions of approval, I will note that there is a no parking sign there currently, according to the owner. And also, as the committee knows, there is a curb there. But if the committee finds it appropriate to impose additional measures to prevent parking there as a condition of approval, that is acceptable.
Thank you very much. The committee can think that through. Okay, other questions here, panel, for the applicant? We can take it into committee then now for some discussion. Mr. Bayek, go ahead.
Sorry, Chair, I just have maybe I'll ask the question within committee. My understanding from the applicant was that the bylaw allows for a home business to be operated, like personal home business to be operated, which assumes there's a single business that's going to be operated by the homeowner. My sense from what I've heard, not only from the applicant, but also the person in opposition at number 110, was that there are multiple businesses being operated and not necessarily by the homeowner. If that's the case, I think I have an issue with that particular.
We've lost you, Mr. Bayek. Try canceling your video. We lost your audio.
Sorry, I'm not quite sure where I cut off, but essentially my concern would be that if there are multiple businesses operating out of this premise, include and do not necessarily include the homeowner.
Yeah, I hear you.
From what I understood, it doesn't comply with the bylaw.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I find it difficult to support this one.
Okay. Other comments? Anyone else? Mr. Reed, sure, go ahead.
I understand that concern, but I'm slightly less concerned just because of the proximity to Bloor Street. It's adjacent to a Bloor Street property. And with that level of transit and accessibility, I think limited commercial use in this building is acceptable from in my perspective. My main concern was the parking issue, because I think that's been an ongoing problem, and whenever there are vehicles blocking a sidewalk, that's a significant safety issue. So I support this application without the parking, and then with further blocking of the property.
Ms. Chan?
Yes, I can add my comment. I don't think the applicant is saying that it will be multiple kinds of business. I think he was saying that it's just multiple personnel will be working, not just one person working there. So, and also with the proximity to Blue Street, I think it is just a little extension to the context, right, to the commercial street. But I do agree with Peter very strongly that we have the parking is an issue, because if you take the argument as the proximity to Blue Street to justify to have this kind of business, and then you still want to have a parking, I do not think that you can have both sides of the argument. I think that is to limit the disturbance to the residential part. I think that the parking should be eliminated. But in terms of just having a non-parking sign, I do not think is enough, because the owner might use it and then they will never report themselves, right? So I think that maybe we should impose some kind of a planter to be put in that area.
Let's put our heads together on that existing parking pad that is now no longer in the application. I think we'd want it, at the very least, we want it torn up. We want the hard surface torn up and replaced by soft landscaping. And then there's the question of whether we want to go beyond that with planters or something to actually make it a problem to park there. Because the curb cut would allow a car to get over there. You could go over there and then cut sharp right. So what can we do to actually impose conditions here that might handle the parking on that other half of the front yard? Mr. Bayek, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if requiring a certain number, an adequate number of bollards might suffice.
I'm sure it would. That'd do the job. And it probably isn't very many. It's probably just as few as 2 bollards could do the job.
Probably, yes.
Mr. Reid?
Thanks, Chair. I'd be hesitant to mandate that they rip it up the front yard, just because there's no soft yard landscaping that's variance that's being pursued. I think it would be a better solution, but I think it might be a bit onerous. I think in order to get to the core issue, I think I would feel more comfortable focusing on bollards or planters and covering the entire frontage, not just the interlock part, but the concrete walkway part, because I think that is where the real issue, the biggest issue comes, when people park right up against the stairs and then the vehicle covers the sidewalk.
Okay.
So maybe we use kind of broader language around bollard or planter or similar structure to prevent parking on any portion of the front yard.
Can we have the site plan back, please? Actually, we'll have that front photograph back. And then we can look at the site plan. I'd like to see the photograph again first. There was a photograph looking straight at the house from the street, which shows that parking pad there. That was it, I think. Yeah. Okay. See. So panel, we could ask for 2 bollards after, on the private property section, going across the front of the house. Across the front of the house. So there'd only be one parking space there that would be in line with the front door, but we'd prevent parking in front of the big front window. And we have to be able to describe this, and otherwise it'll be used for sure. It'll be used without any doubt, unless we impose a condition.
Maybe I suggest something in that regard. What about to install permanent bollard or planter at the front to prevent the space used as parking?
Do you mean like wooden planters?
Yeah, should be permanent bollard or planter, because from the photograph, it look like those big bollard can be moved around.
They could be moved around.
But I think it should be permanent. It's fixed. Yeah.
Can we have the site plan up now, please? Focusing in on the front yard. Go down a little, zoom in a bit further, please. Okay. Okay. Well, here we can use the site plan where it says existing interlock parking pad. We could simply say two planters or two planters across the front at each corner of the existing interlock parking pad, or three would do the trick for sure, right across that front of the existing interlock parking pad. Or the property line is way back. Okay, the property line is way back toward the house, so that's where the bollards would have to be. It's getting complicated.
Chair, could we perhaps identify how many planters or how many bollards we could place? For example, when we're looking at the existing interlocking pad, we would indicate that there would be at least two permanent planters or bollards on the private property of where the existing interlocking pad is, and at least one in front of the concrete walkway so that nobody parks right up at the front entrance. About three obstructions.
Oh, right. Okay, this is just dawning on me now. So the concrete walkway it's not going to be a parking spot anymore, is it?
No. And, you know, it's identified as a walkway. If there's a vehicle parked there, that's a problem.
Panel members, I'm not sure we can handle this on the fly. I think the fact that it's, I'm not seeing a solution here that's easy.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if it provides any help.
Sure.
I think Yim is on the right track in saying to install permanent bollards or planters. I don't think you need to say how many.
Okay.
You could say along the frontage of the site, because we need to make sure it's on site.
On the private property.
In the front yard, yes. So you could also explain where along that frontage. So
along the property line.
Along the property line. The entire property line or some space for a walkway?
Okay. So don't specify the number, but say along the property line.
To install permanent bollards
Excluding
and
the walkway, yeah.
planters in the front yard along the front property line on site.
Okay.
Something along
I
that.
think that's a solution.
Yeah, and you can add excluding the walkway, and that's to cover it all.
Okay, fine. Anyone want to make a motion? Mr. Reed?
Well, sorry, can I just make another point? I think, are we allowed to specify that it be in the boulevard? Because if we do it behind the property line, it's just going to be the same situation, right? Like vehicles park now basically with their nose right up to the front of the stairs. So it's all in the public right of way there. And then that vehicle goes on the sidewalk. So I think it'll exacerbate the problem if this is going to be only on the property line. Like I know transportation services, when they decommission front yard parking parking spaces at houses that people have, they often mandate that some sort of planter or blocker get put in that spot. And I know those are in the boulevard and not on private property.
I think Peter is right. It will just make the problem bigger if they try to squeeze into that spot and then totally obstructing the sidewalk. So I think that we can just say along the boulevard, if the city have something to say, I don't think they will have some objection to that. But also, we can also note that they're saying that no parking is permitted in the front yard. Then we can say that in a condition.
Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, can we ask transportation to install bollards on the boulevard, or is that beyond our?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I wouldn't suggest that.
No.
Whatever condition you're imposing, it has to be on on-site private property.
When I think about it,
If it's on that edge of the frontage on site, to eliminate people from parking in the front yard and overhanging on the municipal sidewalk, that's an option.
Yeah. And you see, and panel members, it's my sense that once we move the front of the car back by about, I think this is going to be something approaching a meter, they're going to be so egregiously blocking the sidewalk that it's going to draw the attention of the parking police, and so most of us are smart enough not to park blocking a sidewalk because we know it's trouble when we come back. So I think the Deputy Secretary Treasurer has the idea right. We specify that the bollards are implanted permanently on the property line, on the property site, and I think that'll do it. That'd be my suggestion.
Chair, if I may just throw out one more idea, which may not fly, but I thought anything right now. Would this be an application that one could say to the applicant, we believe this should be deferred until you come up with a solution to that particular problem, because the problem is related to the application itself. They're running a business and they're not doing anything to mitigate the illegal parking behavior that we're seeing. So should this be something that goes back to the applicants and say, you've got to come up with a solution?
The applicant has helped us out by removing that minor variance request. That was a big help that the applicant took a step forward. I would not be in favor of deferring, no, personally. Peter.
Could I just, sorry to belabor this, but I'm just wondering because I believe if it's on private, if we mandate this to be on private property, it's not going to work. I understand your point, Chair, about that it will be very egregious so people won't do it, but I think that doesn't stop a lot of people. I'm wondering if we can put the condition that it happens adjacent to the sidewalk, but then add in to the satisfaction of the appropriate person in transportation, so the director of transportation services or something like that, and then they could ensure that they got the type of blockage they want and the extent of the blockage that they want.
Through
don't know
Mr.
what.
Chair, Peter, would that be on site though, not on the municipal boulevard?
No, I'm saying it would be on the boulevard.
Okay, the only
Because
concern
property.
there would be, what if transportation services says no? Then they won't be able to fulfill that condition, and then they'll have to come back to committee.
Right. But I guess that could be if that would be to the satisfaction of transportation. I guess giving transportation the option to say no. And that would,
However,
then
you
they'd technically be satisfied.
And then you haven't resolved the issue.
Right. Yeah, correct. But I'm just saying if we only mandate it on private property, I don't think it's going to solve the issue.
Mr. Byatt. Mr. Byatt, please unmute.
Just to add to that, I think the question that Deputy Secretary Treasurer asked, I think may offer us a way out. If we suggested that the obstructive items be placed on site, but at the edge, and I'm not sure what the compass direction, whether it's east or west, edge of site, so that it's right on the edge of the sidewalk. But on site, it may still be public property, but it's not blocking the sidewalk, doesn't obstruct it, but it's on property on the site. I'm not sure if I make any sense there, but
I don't see the difference between that and Mr. Reed's suggestion.
Is that what you were suggesting, Mr. Reed?
But I think
No, is it here? Because the
suggestion. Oh, sorry.
just one
Peter.
second. Just the property line is quite recessed. It's back right at the foot of the stairs, right? Yeah. So that's my concern. Go ahead, Yim.
Yes, I think that Peter's suggestion will work because it's actually in line with what transportation asking to have no front yard parking anyway. So we just say to the satisfaction of transportation does not take away the right or the jurisdiction to finally approve it. So we are not overstepping that. So I think Peter's suggestion is the best, and I'll go for that. Yeah.
Well, what about both? Well, what about we impose bollards on the private property, and we ask, we put in wording to the effect that transportation, we request them to review the boulevard to see if additional bollards would be appropriate. Then we got it covered. Okay. Okay. Any thoughts on that?
I think that makes sense, Bruce. Maybe we could do if-then kind of thing. If we say obstructive, whatever we're going to call it, in the right-of-way adjacent to the sidewalk, to the satisfaction of transportation, and then if that is not achieved, if transportation is not satisfied with that, then we propose it to right adjacent to the property line. You know what I'm saying? Like
I know what you're saying. I get it. Okay.
But maybe that's overly complicated.
Yes, okay. No, it doesn't sound like it. I'm seeing a nod from our Deputy Secretary Treasurer that that's a possible way forward. So I think that's the way we should go forward at this stage. And I'd look to somebody to come forward with a motion.
Okay, I'll try, and maybe we can edit it as we go on. So I'll move approval of the application as amended. That's with variance 3 deleted, subject to the condition that permanent obstacles be located within the municipal right-of-way adjacent to the sidewalk to prevent parking on any part of the front property, of the front yard. And then that would be to the satisfaction of whoever the appropriate position is in the transportation department. And then the second part being, if transportation is not satisfied with that, that solution, that those parking obstacles be located on the private property.
Very good. Is there a second to that motion? It is seconded by Ms. Chan. Okay. So, moved and seconded to approve with that condition. All those in favor, please, show of hands. And that vote is unanimous to carry the motion and to so approve the amended application. Thank you very much, panel members, for working for a solution there. And with that, we move along. So we're going now to number 29. Okay. 72 Harshaw Avenue. And on 72 Harshaw, before us are the materials submitted with the application, plus 2 form letters in support, signed by the owners and occupants of 70 and 74 Harshaw Avenue, which would appear to be the 2 properties on each, immediately on each side. So let's have that speaker join us, please, by stating your name.
Andrew, you've been unmuted.
Committee. My name is Andrew Miskiv, and I'm the applicant for 72 Harshaw Avenue.
Very good. Okay. Panel members, questions here? I'll do the question that's of concern to me, applicant, and that is, in the rear, you have a significant requested deficiency in soft landscaping. You're 34 where 50 is required. What is it that's preventing you from doing better on approaching compliance on that?
The rear is constrained because it's a mutual drive and the garage is in the rear of the yard. There isn't really much room for more soft landscaping. So he has a little planter bed in the backyard with a little standing area with the patio pavers. I don't want to narrow the driveway into the garage because it's not a very wide garage as it is.
Okay.
And he has a walkway into the side of the garage to the left there, to the south.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Byatt,
We have
question?
space for more soft.
Yeah, just on the same site plan, pardon me, at the rear, we see patio pavers. How far do those pavers extend? Is it all the way up to the proposed new addition?
No.
And is it the width right up to the garage?
So in the back, there's a raised planter, like a bit of a garden. So it's just a dry spot to actually do gardening from. Rather than having a mud patch, it's just, I forget if it's a 2x2 or 1x1. It's just a row of pavers there.
Okay.
There's no connection to any walkway. It's just for standing purposes and gardening.
Thank you.
Thank you. And currently in the back, so there's an arc that curves. There is an existing patio paver area. The addition will pretty much cover or replace that section. So we're not losing much soft landscaping, just that little arc, that little triangle.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. I think we're ready to take this application into committee for a motion. Mr. Byatt, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a very straightforward and limited proposal. It's unfortunate that the soft landscaping is at the number that it's at, but as the applicant has indicated, there is an existing patio which will be then covered by the addition. So it's almost an existing circumstance. I don't believe there are any, sorry, are there any? I don't think there's any conditions attached to this particular application, so I'm quite happy to move approval without any conditions.
Thank you. There's a second from Mr. Reed. Moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, please show your hands. And that vote is unanimous. Motion carries. The application is approved. So at this time, we're a couple of hours into this segment of the agenda. Let's take a 10-minute recess and resume at 4:20. 10-minute recess. We resume. And we resume with item number 30, 151 Beresford Avenue. On this application, the committee has before it the following. Submitted materials, revised site plan, March 27. Email correspondence from the agent, March 27. There is correspondence both in support and in opposition. There are 7 form letters signed by the owners and occupants of 128, 126, 124, 147, and 149 Beresford, and also 118 Runnymede, and 116 Runnymede. In opposition, there's correspondence from Jane and Yan Chong at 100 Hayden, and also from 153 Beresford, and from Sabrina McCluskey of the Swansea Area Ratepayers Association. Let's have the agent join us, please, by stating your name.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members, committee adjustment staff. My name is Salvatore Crimi. Address is 2572 Eglinton Avenue West.
Good afternoon to you. Okay, Mr. Crimi, you have 5 minutes to present your application to the committee. Please carry on.
So, Mr. Chair, through you, it's an application to permit a 2-story rear addition and to convert the existing enclosed front porch to be a portion of it as habitable interior space. The greatest, although like we do get, it's a highly dense downtown community and urban fabric. The addition, in consultation with the neighbors at 153, we are aware, because I was in consult with them, that it does raise concerns. Tried the best through communication to see if there was anything we could do, because we did take the best efforts when designing it to not take the addition to the full height of the peak of the roof, but rather terminate it at the eaves trough and try and maintain as much of a lessened rear impact by going out with the rear addition. Ultimately, through communication, the biggest thing is the lack of sunlight that's going to be for the dwelling at 153. Sadly, we weren't able to come to a consensus on a built form, so it's something we're going to have to discuss here at committee. Other than that, the essence of this application is to permit for the increasing needs of the family as it is growing, and that presents the need for additional floor space on the inside. And I know when we're looking at these applications, we want to try and maintain as much of a lessened impact for soft landscaping lessening. Sorry, I know that's not proper, but we couldn't do much more than what's presented now, as the remainder of what is not soft landscaping at the rear yard is being utilized by the driveway to access the existing frame garage. And we did also consult with the Swansea area resident. I did speak with Sabrina on this. We both did come to the consensus that there is ultimately, I think the nature of the letter was to raise attention as to not alter the existing front fabric of the home, which is not part of this proposal. They did want to go on record as to flag any future modifications to the front facade, which again is not part of this proposal. Other than that, we both came to the consensus that it is a modest addition and a modest increase to the built form. And I now would like to open it up to any additional speakers or any questions by the committee.
Thank you very much. Panel members, shall we let the registered speakers speak first? Let's do that. Moderator, let's have the first. I guess we just have one registered speaker, so let's have that speaker join us.
Jane, you've been unmuted and you may turn on your video.
Great. Can you hear me?
We hear you clearly. State your name, please.
Okay, that's great. Yes, my name is Jane Chong, and I am at 1606 100 Hayden Street in Toronto.
Go ahead, Jane.
Can I go ahead?
You have
Great.
Jane, you have 5 minutes to address your concerns to the panel. Go ahead, please.
Great, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jane Chong, and I'm the daughter of Lynn Chong, the homeowner at 153 Beresford Avenue. We're the neighbor directly to the north of the applicant's house at 151 Beresford. So further to the March 29th, 2023 email that I submitted on behalf of my mother, which you see on the screen, I'd like to make the following additional remarks in support of our objection. So I mentioned in my March 29th email that my mother is an avid gardener, 3 seasons of the year. I should add that when she is not outside tending to her in-ground garden, she's busy on the back porch tending to her large collection of container plants, which are moved indoors for the colder months. My mother relies on the natural daylight coming in through the back of her house to keep her plants alive indoors. Reducing the natural light coming into her home will not only affect her plants, but will potentially also negatively affect her mental well-being. Her other activities, such as reading, writing, bookkeeping, and so on, are centered around the natural light she receives from the back of her home. As an early bird, she spends the bulk of her mornings from daybreak to noon by her east-facing sliding glass doors if she's not outside. We estimate that allowing a larger back extension to 151 Beresford than the bylaw allows will reduce the natural light to 153 Beresford year-round by at least a couple of hours per day. With the hours of daylight already reduced in the winter months, the darkest months will only become darker. Furthermore, allowing an extension larger than permitted will further pen in 153 Beresford from 3 sides. There's currently a wall to the east. There's a more receded wall of buildings and businesses on Bloor Street. And the previous file on 118 Runnymede actually had a very good picture of the layout. So we actually are on the backside of 118 Runnymede, a kitty corner to the 118 address, which is directly behind 151 Beresford. And that pictorial actually shows the block of Bloor Street addresses backing to the south, and our house is 2 down from the corner of Bloor and Beresford. So building yet a third wall by our neighbors would potentially shut out any additional light and pen in the backyard of 153 Beresford. The other thing I wanted to say is that, while it's not our intention to dictate the size of the home our neighbor wishes to build, I do want to point out that our family has lived at 153 Beresford since 1978, so 45 years. Our house is similar in size and design layout to the houses on either side of us, and generally similar to many of the houses on our street. Our neighbor to the north at 155 Beresford is a household with a single mother raising 2 boys, and my parents raised 4 children in our house, and it continues to be home to 3 generations of our family. 153 Beresford is and always will be where we all come home to. In conclusion, we ask that the committee take our comments and concerns into consideration in rendering a decision that minimizes impact to my mother and her home, that requires that the applicant adhere to the existing bylaws to the greatest extent possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions, panel, of the speaker? Okay. I'm not hearing any, so let's return to the applicant. And I'm going to ask the applicant to comment in rebuttal on the topics that have been raised by Jane. So we'll bring the applicant back now, please.
Hello again, Mr. Chair, and through you. As I did state, I did have a lengthy conversation with Jen and with her brother with regards to this proposal. I totally sympathize with the concerns. We did discuss, though, that the properties do face east and west. So the sunlight going to be coming from the south, which is away from the large building directly to the north. Although, yes, within the morning hours, especially, within the afternoon hours, their sunlight's going to be lessened on the south windows on the south side, but the north windows for a large portion of the day will still maintain sunlight along with their frame deck. And realistically, the obstruction that's going to be in place for the garden and the backyard will be the obstructions that are currently in place now, be it the fence. It is like, and I did bring it up too, and I heard discrepancies about how multi-generational families were raised within their existing house. I get every family is going to operate differently, and the needs of every family and the wants are going to operate differently. So I don't think we can really say because a family did something in one house, it's going to be applicable and suitable for all. This family living within the house for some time has felt the need to make an enlargement to it, and be it by today's standards is a little bit on the smaller side. I don't want to take anything away from how previous generations would have lived within homes. Ultimately, everybody's left to their own decisions, and they feel that this house is just a little bit small for their lifestyle and how they see the family growing and why they wanted to make this proposal. Again, without being obnoxious, this proposal did not go to the ridge line of the roof. It stopped at the eavesdrop as to lessen the massing and the overwhelming to surrounding neighbors. 153 is in a difficult spot, though, because they are so close to Bloor and they have a large building directly to the north. I totally sympathize how they feel like they're being closed in. It is a downtown community, and as we know, intensifications are going to be focused from the downtown cores and branched out. And ultimately, this is, I think, in my opinion, what's happening within this area, and especially at this home. We're getting a little bit of density, not density increase, but massing increase because of the growing needs of the family. And as such, it's going to produce some ills. But the best situation obviously would have been if these houses were facing north and south, so the sunlight would always be maintained to those backyards. But considering the concerns are really around vegetation and sunlight entering the home, we're going to maintain sunlight because of the orientation for a large portion of the day. It's really going to be the evening hours and the sunset that are not going to be enjoyed from the back of the house. Alternatively, they can be enjoyed from the enclosed porch at the front, so they're not going to get a total loss of how sunlight can be harnessed at the home at 153. They might just have to adjust where maybe vegetation within the summer months is placed, because there's that beautiful enclosed porch that's going to get sunlight as well. Other than that, again, I do want to iterate, I'm sympathetic to it. We did try through communication to see if there was something they wanted to see done to the proposal to make it easier. We weren't really able, and I didn't get any responses with clear direction on how we could alter this proposal to their liking. So again, we did try to see if there's something we could do, but I didn't get anything in writing or through communication that they wanted to see done. I just got the concerns. So I think I'll turn it over to the committee if there's any questions.
Thank you very much. Panel members, are there any questions for the applicant? No, I'm not hearing any. That being the case, we can take the application into committee for a motion. Mr. Bayek, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. Having listened to the daughter of the neighbor, I empathize, but I've listened to the agent as well, and the agent is quite correct in one sense that, while the neighbor has lived there for 40 plus years, one of the interesting things, of course, is change happens. One of the things I noted from a Google satellite view is that directly east of the neighbor's property, there's a gigantic a building which belongs to Shoppers Drug Mart, which 40 years ago wasn't there. So sunlight would have probably streamed in from the east at the time. The actual application, from my perspective, is very modest, and while the soft landscaping stands out, there's not much that the agent or the applicant has done to create that circumstance, almost an existing circumstance. So it's one that I'm quite happy to and able to support. And I'd move for approval without any conditions. I don't believe there are any conditions attached to this particular. Yeah, there are no conditions attached.
Thank you. Ms. Chan, are you seconding? You're seconding? Yes, okay.
Sorry. I agree with the analysis. I think that what they're asking in terms of what's in front of us is moderate. And I think that maybe the neighbor is just afraid of change. But I do not think they're asking for is too much, because there aren't any side rear yard setback requirement, and there's no height variances. So I would support these two. I will second.
Okay, it is therefore moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor, please, show of hands. That vote is unanimous. Motion's carried. The application is approved. The panel moves on to application number 31, 20 Melville Avenue. And on this application, the only material before the panel are those which were submitted at the time of the application. Let's have the applicant join us, please.
Hello, good evening, Mr. Chair.
Good evening, good afternoon. State your name, please.
My name is Abhishek Rathore from MEM Engineering.
Very good.
And we are representing this.
Okay. Panel members, questions for the agent? I'm not hearing any questions. Okay. Panel members, is anyone ready with a motion? Oh, Ms. Chan, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I'm ready for motion. Are you ready? Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think this is a very straightforward application. They're only asking for the increase in GFA or FSI. I don't have any problem, and there aren't any oppositions here either. So I would just move for approval with no conditions.
Thank you. Mr. Byatt seconds your motion. Moved and seconded to approve, no conditions. All in favor, please, show of hands. Thank you. That motion is carried. The application is approved. Number 32 is 16 LYND. Here, beyond the submitted materials, we have a map of comparable properties. We have a drawing showing existing legal duplexes from the agent. There is correspondence, both in support and in opposition. In support, there are 10 form letters from addresses on Lynd Avenue, 12, 14, 20, 21, 27, 29, 31, 34, and 47, plus 18 Lynd. In opposition, there is one piece of correspondence from 28 Lynd from Daniel Teramura. Let's have the agent join us.
This is Nilufar Sultani from KH Davis Engineering. I'm the agent of the owners of 16 Lynd Avenue, and my address is 1468 Danforth Avenue.
Good afternoon. Okay.
Good afternoon.
Okay, panel members. Any questions for the agent panel members? Mr. Byatt, go ahead, right ahead.
Just a quick one with regard to variance number 3. Looking at your site plan, it seems like there's essentially this is an existing situation. That's not much you can do about it. Am I correct?
Number 3 is. Yes. So
soft landscaping.
Soft landscaping. Actually, the existing is even less. I believe it's 31 or 32%. So we have tried to increase the soft landscaping, but most of the backyard is occupied by the existing garage, and the only hard landscaping is just a walkway from garage to the proposed deck. We even reduced the deck. We had a larger deck. We minimized the deck so we can have more soft landscaping, but that was as much as we could do.
And may I assume that below the deck, you'll have permeable materials?
I believe so. Yeah, that could be done.
Yes, please. And that would be great. Thank you.
No problem.
Not hearing any other questions. So let's go into committee and move toward a motion. Mr. Byatt, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm quite happy to move a motion to approve. I don't believe there are any conditions attached to number 32. So approval without any conditions.
Mr. Reed, go ahead. Oh, Mr. Reed seconding. Okay. Okay, moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, please show hands. Unanimous vote carries the motion. The application is approved. Number 33 is 248 Kenilworth Avenue. We've got the submitted material package. We have a staff report from Urban Forestry, and there is support correspondence, 7 form letters, 244, 254, 240, 242 Kenilworth, 246 and 250 Kenilworth, plus 65 Norway. Agent, please join us.
Representing 248 Kenilworth Avenue, and I'm with Replacement Design located at 911 Davenport Road.
I'm sorry, I think we missed the first part. Could you state your name again, please?
Yes, it's Mike DeOliveira.
Very good. Okay. Okay, panel members, questions here, if there are any for Mr. DeOliveira.
Just one, if I may, Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Byatt.
It's just with reference to variance number 1. I wonder if the agent could just speak to that.
Certainly. So in terms of the soft landscaping in the rear of the property, if you pull up our proposed site plan, it'll be a little easier to show you. Next page. Yeah, there you go. So if you look at the very back of the property there, you'll see there's a large right-of-way, which allows for access to parking on all the neighboring lots as well. So we lose around 15 feet of the backyard to hard landscaping right off the bat. And then we just have the very minimum of the existing parking area there for our clients to be able to park their car. Currently, the entire backyard is hard landscaping, so we're actually improving on this variance. Currently, there's 0%. Our proposal moves that to 20.17% or 15.16 square meters. So we did have discussions with community planning as well leading up to this hearing, and they decided once they realized that we were improving on the numbers that they were going to drop any concerns. So it is something we try to address ahead of time, and I believe we're improving on the existing conditions of the lot by quite a bit here. We're also just using interlocking stone, so that'll still allow for water penetration as well.
Thank you. And the parking space that you've got, the existing parking, is that gravel?
Right now, I believe that whole area is gravel, minus perhaps part of the right of way, but it is all considered part of the landscaping either way, and is exactly the same outline as the existing parking.
So at least that's permeable as well, so that's good. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further questions, let's go into committee and move to a motion. Mr. Byatt? Mr. Byatt, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I think this is a very reasonable application, and my curiosity has certainly been satisfied. I don't believe there are any conditions attached to this item, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry, I got the wrong page here. Forestry number 2, I believe. Am I correct? I think that's the only one. So if that's the only condition, I'd be happy to move forward with a proposal to approve with forestry 2 as the condition.
Very good, okay. Ms. Chan, you're seconding? Moved by Mr. Byatt, seconded by Ms. Chan. All in favor, please, show of hands. And that vote carries the motion. The application is approved. Thank you. Number 34, 246 Hastings Ave. 246 Hastings. Beyond the application package, we have a revised site plan, cover letter from the applicant, correspondence from the applicant, March 3rd. There is an arborist report and tree protection plan, staff report from Urban Forestry, and 7 form letters supporting. 243, 247, 248, 249, 255, Hastings, plus 258 and 239 Hastings. So let's have the agent join us, please. State your name.
Right, yep. Name is Andrew Driver, and my address is 246 Hastings Ave.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Any questions for the applicant, or the agent? Not hearing any. Anyone ready with the motion? Mr. Reed, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I was surprised looking at this that there weren't more variances involved, but it's just FSI. It's an interesting way to gain more space by leaving the first floor open and going up to above that. And I think it's done in a tasteful way that is sensitive to the neighborhood. And there are 2-story additions in the back, pretty commonly around there. I think because of these reasons, I think it's a supportable application. So I move approval of this application subject to forestry condition 2.
Thank you. Seconded by Mr. Byatt. Moved and seconded to approve, subject to forestry. All in favor? That unanimous vote carries the motion. The application is approved. Number 35 is 72 Chestnut Park. There are application materials, an arborist report. There is a heritage impact assessment and presentation materials from the agent March 30. Staff report, urban forestry, and heritage planning. Support correspondence from 73 Chestnut Park and from 70 Chestnut Park. Let's have the agent join us, please.
Mr. Bronskill again. I hope you can hear me okay. I've had to come onto my iPad just for tech reasons, so I hope I'm coming through okay.
You're coming through pretty well. This is, well, we're getting some echo there.
David, if you have more than one device in the background, please disable one of them.
It's weird. I don't. Let me just. No, I don't have you on twice. Mr. Chair, can you give me 10 seconds? I'm going to just try a different log on.
Take 10 seconds, go ahead. Yep.
And just for staff, I will be coming in on a different name, I think.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
I hear you clearly, Mr. Bronskill. Yes.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
I think that's better, actually. Yeah, good. And
thank you. Appreciate the indulgence.
Good, and I'm not echoing anymore, so that's good. Okay. Moderator, I understand we do have one person standing by.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the registered speaker is on standby.
Okay. Mr. Bronskill, you have 5 minutes to present your application to the panel. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a proposal. I should do one clarification at the start because I got a bit confused when I looked at the public hearing notice myself, and it does say to construct a new 3-story detached dwelling. I just wanted to flag for the committee, the existing house is in fact being maintained. I think that's important from a heritage perspective. So it's not being demolished, but being maintained. And I think that's clear in the heritage impact assessment as well in terms of how it was assessed. There is the addition on the back, and it's a new rear integral garage fronting onto Thornwood. And the reason it's technically called an integral garage is that there's a 1-story breezeway connecting the rear of the home, and there's a 1-story covered terrace there, and then a 1-story bump out that connects through to the garage. And that was the focus of the heritage impact assessment. And you'll note that there is a condition from heritage staff, just a standard condition that they've accepted the work. They did indicate if it was a demolition, they would be in opposition because this is a B-rated house. But in terms of the addition, heritage staff are in support and have recommended a condition with which our client is obviously in an agreement. There were also discussions with the adjacent neighbor that I should just flag for you at 70. There's a letter on the record from Ms. Robinson indicating that her client did have concerns, the discussions have occurred, and that she's writing to indicate if a condition is imposed requiring privacy screening on the west side of the covered terrace, that her client would then be in support. And so, Mr. Chair, I would be formally asking that that condition be imposed as requested by Ms. Robinson. And then just given the nature of the variances, as I have said to this committee before, because of the length depth variance that applies to the back of the new garage, because it is connected to the structure, I do think this is a case where it is very important that a condition, should the committee see fit to allow the variances, a condition that construction proceeds substantially in accordance with the site plan would be appropriate, because that length or depth shouldn't be redeployed in a different manner on the site. I think it's also important for the neighbors at 70 that the covered terrace is next to them and not the actual structure or room. So I think this site plan is important to be locked down should the committee again see fit to allow the variances. I can then walk through the variances if you wish. Length and dwelling, I think, are self-explanatory in terms of they are to the back of the rear integral garage. So while numerically they may seem substantial, that's a glass breezeway attaching the garage. It's all one story. There is an existing garage that will be demolished and replaced. It's in roughly the same location. And in fact, I can advise the committee that that existing garage has the same rear yard setback at 0.41 as we are seeking here today. So overall, with the Heritage House being appropriately maintained and with the support of staff, we think this is a creative parking solution. And frankly, in this climate and on a day like this, being able to access your garage through the breezeway is a nice amenity for someone to have. I'd note no landscaping variances, so we're not inappropriately taking away the green space for this connection. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions the committee may have, and obviously listen to whoever's registered to speak.
Thank you very much. The first question I was going to put to you was exactly the one that you addressed, because I spent a long time trying to figure this out. But I'm now satisfied that the 1907 house does not get demolished. I was glad to hear that. I think we should amend the wording of the purpose to reflect that fact, because the purpose states something else.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the site plan shows proposed three-story dwelling. So if Mr. Bronscale can just explain to us what the proposal is actually.
Mr. Bronscale?
And the second question, sorry, that I would have is, if more than 50% of the walls are being demolished, then buildings will consider it a new dwelling.
We're concerned about the 1907 dwelling. What's happening to the 1907 dwelling?
The 1907 dwelling is being substantially maintained. I'm just pulling up the HIA, Mr. Chair. I've just got it on my desktop to pull it up. If you can just give me one moment. So it's a three-story rear addition, a new garage. That maybe is what's causing the confusion on the site plan. It is a three-story rear addition and garage. So as I indicated, it's an addition at the back, but the structure itself, importantly, is being maintained, and that's detailed in the HIA, and is why, frankly, the Heritage staff have ultimately been supportive of it. There are some changes on one of the elevations, the west elevation, where there's some new windows being put on that west elevation. There's a slight change with a new window on the east elevation.
Just a sec, okay. I want to come back to the purpose now, because could the purpose be rewritten then to read, to construct a new three-story rear addition on the existing dwelling? Because right now it reads to construct a new dwelling, and we don't like the sound of that.
Mr. Chair, I'm fine with that. I look at this and I look at what's done in the HIA. I think some of the interior space is being repurposed and reused, but I don't see it as a new three-story detached dwelling. I do acknowledge that the site plan indicates proposed three-story dwelling, and perhaps it would have been better to have refined that language. I do note it doesn't say new three-story dwelling. This is a proposed three-story dwelling, but it's the existing house with some alterations.
The purpose of the notice that we are dealing with, the public notice, does clearly read, though, to construct.
I agree, sir.
A new three-story. So I'd like to change that
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can just say to construct a rear 3-story addition with a rear integral garage.
Exactly, yeah.
That's a sound suggestion. I have no concern with, I think that was staff that suggested it. I think it's a sound suggestion.
Thank you.
I think it's important that we do that. And, okay. So, having cleared that up, let's go on to the registered speaker who's standing by.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're going to try to locate her. She was in attendance earlier.
We'll stand by. Please take that time to do that. Good.
Linda, you've been unmuted. Hi, Linda. You've been unmuted. Linda, are you there? You've been unmuted. Through you, Mr. Chair, it appears that the registered speaker may have technical issues.
You think she's with us, but she's having technical problems that prevent her from joining us?
I mean, she did disappear twice, and we have her on the list right now. She's unmuted, but there's no sound.
There is no sound. Okay, thank you, moderator, for
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're just going to try calling her.
Let's try calling her. Good idea. We'll wait a few moments longer. It's important that we hear from her if we possibly can.
Linda, if you can hear us, we are calling your personal cell phone number.
For those watching online, we're just trying to connect with a person who had registered to speak, who was with us, and who we now are having difficulty raising. So we're trying every method we can to connect.
Linda, if you can hear us, we are now trying your home phone number.
We weren't able to get her. Okay, so thank you, moderator, for trying so persistently there to connect. I don't think we're going to be able to have that speaker join us. So that being the case, let's go to the panel. And panel, your opportunity now to put questions to the agent. Any questions, panel?
Sorry, Chair.
Mr. Barrett, go ahead. Go ahead with your question.
I don't have any questions. In fact, the questions that I had, I think you asked, and the agent actually provided an explanation, and that is that a lot has to do with the breezeway that he talked about. I think this is quite a reasonably straightforward application. I think it's going to be an interesting improvement. I would take into account the agent's request that we add 2 conditions. I'm sorry, there's forestry 1 and 2 conditions. There's also a heritage condition. And as the agent indicated, that we apply the condition of a screen, I'm not sure what direction it was, but on the terrace facing the neighbor. And that the application be subject to the site plan. And with that, I would be quite happy to move forward with the motion to approve.
Okay, let's see if there's a second for that. It is seconded. Mr. Reed.
And sorry, it's amended.
It is, the amended application is, there's a motion to approve the amended application. Yes. Okay, because we did amend the purpose of the application as well.
That's right.
To reflect the fact that it's a rear addition to an existing dwelling. Okay. It is therefore moved and seconded to so approve as you've just described. All those in favor, please, show of hands. And that vote is unanimous. The motion carries and the amended application is approved. Thank you, panel. We move along to number 36, 75 BRAEMORE Gardens. We're looking at application materials, revised, site plans, and zoning waivers, photographs of some trees on the site, cover letter from the agent, March 29. Email correspondence from Transportation, staff report from Urban Forestry, and 7 form letters which support the application. 68, 73, 77, and 5 BRAEMORE, 27 BRAEMORE, 36 Hillcrest, 32 Witchwood Park. Applicant, please join us by stating your name.
Good afternoon, Chair. Jonathan Hatch, and for 75 BRAEMORE Gardens.
Good afternoon. Okay. Panel, do you have any questions for this applicant? Mr. Reed?
Thanks, Chair. Just one to confirm that you're removing variance 4, is that correct?
That is correct.
And the remainder of the variances remain the same?
That is correct. Variance 4 was an unfortunate error that we couldn't rectify before the hearing, so we were going to remove it.
Okay, let's
Thank
go.
you.
Okay, let's go. Thank you very much, Mr. Reed, for picking up on that. We are going to be amending the application then by removing, at the applicant's request, minor variance number 4. Staff, you with us on that? Yes. Okay. So we now have an amended application, and there are 7 variances in total. Okay, further questions? Okay, if there are no questions, anyone ready with the motion? Mr. Reed, please go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I think this is a very reasonable and well-designed application. The variances are minor and also reflecting existing conditions. It's being tastefully massed and it really fits in with the neighborhood, I think. So I'm happy to move approval of the application as amended, subject to urban forestry condition 1 and 2.
Very good. That is seconded by Mr. Byatt. All in favor, please. Oh, moved and seconded to approve. All in favor, show of hands, please. Unanimous vote. Motion carries. Amended application approved. (37) is 25 MOUNTALAN Avenue. We have here the application package, 6 photographs, trees. It's a staff report, urban forestry, and a 14-signature petition supporting from owners and occupants along MOUNTALAN Ave. I shall ask the agent to join us, please, by stating your name.
Committee, my name is Vinny Losão. I'm the owner's agent for the requested minor variances.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Okay, panel. Anyone like a presentation here? Any questions? Ms. Chan, you first, Mr. Byatt second, with questions.
I think that what they're asking is more moderate. I think this is a minor application, and then I will move with no conditions, yeah.
Okay.
Forestry number.
No, sorry, there's a forestry number 2 condition.
Mr. Byatt, are you okay with that, or do you have a question you want to put?
Absolutely. No, I was going to say the same thing. It's a very modest item and totally supportable.
So you're seconding Ms.
Yes,
Chan's
sir.
motion. Okay, moved and seconded approval. All in favor, please, show of hands. Unanimous vote carries the motion. Application approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 38 is 9 MAUGHAN Crescent. And the only items before the panel on this application are those which form part of the application package. We'll ask the agent to join us, please.
Actually, I'm the owner.
I beg your pardon, was that you, agent?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, hello, I hear you. I'm asking you to state your name, please.
Ellie, are you able to hear us?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can
Hello?
hear you.
Sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ali Arbakti. I'm the owner of 9 Mount Crescent.
Good afternoon. Okay. Panel, any questions here? Is anyone prepared to go forward with the motion? Mr. Bite, go right ahead.
Thank you, Chair. This is another very modest proposal, and there's a good use of the existing garage and space above it and behind it. So I think this is a totally supportable application. There are no conditions attached. So I'd like to move a motion to approve without any conditions.
Okay, Mr. Reed, are you seconding? I thought I saw you seconding. Okay, seconded by Mr. Reed. Moved and seconded to approve. All in favor, please indicate by showing your hands. Unanimous vote, motion carries. Application is approved. Number 39 is 98 Delaware. Here we have the application package. There's a revised set of application materials, March 31. 3 photographs of trees. April 3rd, cover letter from the agent. Planning rationale from the agent, March 28. Map of comparables, 29 March. In support, there's a 4-signature petition. Owners and occupants on Delaware Ave and Dover Court. In interest, correspondence from 102 Delaware. In opposition, correspondence from 96 Delaware, 100, 94. And there are presentation materials in opposition from 96 Delaware. So let's have the agent on this application join us, please.
Hi, good afternoon again, members of the committee. My name is Vino Loção. I'm the owner's agent for the request and minor variances.
Good afternoon. You have 5 minutes to present your application to the panel. Go ahead.
Sure. Before I begin my presentation, can I just ask the moderator to pull up 2 reference files from me, one of which is labeled the E4, my planning rationale. And the secondary one, it's an updated precedent map. It's a very late material, and it's labeled 39E4, supporting material. Yeah, that's the one.
Sorry, what was the previous document you had wanted me to put up? The revised?
Sure, it is E4, planning rationale. That one, yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. Shall I begin?
Yes. As you have 5 minutes, go ahead.
Thank you. So we are adding a thoughtful rear addition to the existing 3-story semi-detached house. The proposed addition will create much needed extra space for this family. We have 1 variance related to the FSI for the main house and 2 minor variances for the brand new laneway suite. So I'd like to start by talking about the 1 variance for the house, being the FSI variance. For that, could you pull up page 4 of my planning rationale, please? Thank you. So first of there are 3 reasons here as why I believe this should be a minor variance. So first of all, the ground floor addition we're proposing here is very minor. We're only extending the ground floor to the rear of our property by an extra 1.52 meters, which works out to be an extra 13.33 square meters, whereas the remaining square footage is going to the second floor, as you can see on page 5. We are adding 34.7 square meters here, which is an additional 4.59 meters to the rear of our property here on the second floor. Secondly, we're proposing an FSI that is 14.3% above what is allowed for an additional 48.02 square meters. So the proposed FSI is 83.3%, and the allowed FSI for a rear addition on this property is 69%. Thirdly, I want to highlight that we are compliant with all the other zone requirements, including height, setbacks, and depth. I want to emphasize that the proposed building depth is compliant. I highlight this because a few of our surrounding neighbors have raised a concern that our depth is a major variance. I'd argue the exact opposite. The proposed depth is within the as-of-right allowance. The addition is only 5 feet longer than the existing house, and in fact is 0.7 meters shorter than the maximum depth allowed. In addition to that, I also want to point out to the committee the higher FSI have been granted within a neighborhood. So could you pull up the diagram for the reference map 39E4, please? Thank you very much. As you can see in this diagram, there are at least 23 other properties that have been approved within this neighborhood that have higher FSI than what we're seeking here, with 7 of them being at our street. Once again, even though I'm not seeking a depth variance, I want to highlight that this variance is very common for this neighborhood. So for all these reasons, I believe this should be a minor variance in nature. I'd like to move to the 2 variances related to the laneway house. So I start with the landscaping. So can you pull up page 8 of my planning rationale, please? There you go. Thank you. I'd like to start by stating that the soft landscaping variance is a technical variance. We're proposing a soft landscaping of 81%, which works out to be 77.23 square meters out of the 80.53 square meters required. When designing the laneway suite, we were very mindful of soft landscaping requirements, which is why when you look at this diagram here, we can only see a small deck with a set of stairs to grade and a narrow walkway from the primary residence to the new laneway suite. For these reasons, I think this variance should be minor in nature. Moving to the width of the laneway, the proposed building width is also a minor variance. We're simply proposing a building width that's 0.48 meters above the permitted width. We are not compliant because our clients require 2 parking spaces, and they wanted to make sure there was ample space between the second car and the staircase wall. Moreover, when you look at this building as a whole, all the other bylaw parameters that control massing, we are compliant with, and they are the setback, interior floor area, lot coverage, and height, meaning that our building mass is appropriate for the area and will not be disruptive for the neighbors around the development. For these reasons, I believe this variance should be minor in nature, and I just want to highlight here that we have received a fair amount of enthusiastic support for the addition of the laneway suite. Next, talking about our neighbors, as you have noted, we have 4 letters of support. We did receive some objection. We have spoken to our immediate neighbors who discussed their concerns. Unfortunately, we could not come to an agreement. I will speak to their comments after they had a chance to express their concerns. I also want to note that we do have support from planning. To conclude,
I'll ask you to make your final comment now, please.
Absolutely. I think the addition is thoughtful, appropriate, in keeping with the general character of the neighborhood. The homeowners are proposing a modest addition to make more space for their family and revitalize this house. I think the proposed variances are all minor in nature. For these reasons, I ask the committee to grant us the requested minor variances. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, very good. Moderator, let's have the first registered speaker join us.
Hi. You can hear me. Can you hear me? Oh.
Hi, Frank. You can turn on your video.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi there. We're actually together. My name is Marty Herson-Horn, and this is my husband, Frank Battiston. We live at 96 Delaware Avenue, which is directly to the south of the property. We've been there for almost 17 years and have strong ties to the street and to the neighborhood. We had an excellent relationship with the previous owners who raised 6 kids in that home. I want to start off by saying that we want to have a good relationship with our new neighbors. And we respect everyone's right to improve and invest in their properties. We note that the applicant only reached out to us as of Friday, March the 24th, which was after the application hearing notice came out. We were consulted during the process itself. We've submitted our letter of objection stating our concerns. Our number one concern is the overage of the FSI, and in particular, the additional 5 feet on the current addition. To put this into perspective, the house already has an existing addition that is consistent with the built form pattern of the street. If we can go to slide number 1.
Yeah, we have a presentation material, page 1, first half of the cover.
Yep, just give me a sec, I'll put it up.
Sure.
The next page.
Just forward.
Yeah,
right there. Perfect. To put this into perspective, the applicant is looking to add an additional 5 feet to a pre-existing addition. So in essence, it's an addition on an addition, which has a cumulative effect. The applicant provided what they believe to be relevant committee rulings with a radius of 500 meters, and then later added to it, which I can speak to the recent additions if time permits, because I'm familiar with all of them. But upon examination, all but one were relevant. In fact, over 50% of what was proposed or put forth were multiple unit dwellings. The majority of the remainder were townhouses, which were not comparable. And the last two included a temporary condominium sales center and a 4-story apartment building. The properties were in neighborhoods that are not comparable to ours. Only one of the properties was at the time with Delaware, and it wasn't even for an addition, but for a consent to sever property. We've gathered rulings that were more relevant on Delaware, and these were all for additions. And the average FSI of those additions was 6.64.
If we could just go ahead 2 slides.
That's right.
Sorry.
Right there. So the average additional FSI was plus 6.64, and the largest FSI was plus 11. These people, these applicants are looking for plus 23%. This is in no way a minor variance, and the approval of a variance I'm not a planner, but my understanding the approval of a variance is based on 4 key elements, otherwise known as the 4 test. Number 1, is this a minor variance? Number 2, does it maintain the intent of the official plan? Number 3, does it maintain the zoning bylaw? And number 4, is it good planning? I would argue that this request does not meet these tests. For example, the official plan requires that the prevailing built form plan be maintained. Please note the aerial photo with the 3 lines. If we go back again to the first one. Thank you. If you look, the first line in red depicts the original homes as they sit. The second line in teal shows the furthest extent of current additions on the street. And lastly, the blocked out maroon area depicts the applicant's proposed addition. I would draw your attention to the existing 10-foot addition that is currently in place. And if you go to the slide that has a photograph on it, I believe it to be that one. Let me just see where I am. This is the visual from our kitchen. And the next slide, actually, if you go to the next slide.
I'm going to ask you now to make your final comments, please.
Uh-oh. It depicts what that would look like with the addition of the second floor, and then the next slide after that would be with the 5-foot addition. I would say that this bylaw permits a maximum floor space index of 0.60, with the exception to allow for 0.69 for rear additions. We noted that an addition to this house has already been built. The current FSI is 0.70, and the applicant is requesting an increase in FSI to 3. This is not a minor variance because, as mentioned before, it's cumulative. This is a variance on top of the variance. In conclusion, we do not feel that the 4 test of the Planning Act has been met. We would be happy to see the application deferred to provide enough time to work with the applicant. Ultimately, we want to be good neighbors and come to an agreement that satisfies everyone.
Thank you. Your time is up, and thank you. Panel members, any questions for this speaker? Okay, hearing none. Moderator, next registered speaker, please.
Okay.
Hi, Michael. You've been unmuted and you may turn on your video. As well as, can you please confirm if you are related to another registered speaker by the name of Betty Chi?
Yes, it's my wife. We're together. So, good afternoon. My name is Michael Kaufman. I'm here with my wife, Betty Chi. We own and live at 100 Delaware Avenue. Our house is the semi-detached that shares a party wall with 98 Delaware.
Hi there, I'm Betty Chi.
Hello.
When I review this application, hello, can you hear me?
Hear you fine. Go ahead, please.
All right. My name is Betty Chi. When I review this application, what strikes me is akin to seeing a wish list thrown at a wall to see what sticks. I don't believe the Committee of Adjustment process is well used here. Isn't it the job of an architect or designer to help their client understand the planning and zoning strategies for the neighborhood, to the appropriate massing for the site, and how that design could fit into the community? And then, if necessary, propose reasonable variances. Unfortunately, this application seems to take a let the zoning bylaw be damned approach.
The length of the original building from the main front wall to the main rear wall is 37 feet. An addition of 15 feet on 2 levels would create a much larger massing. Pushing out the main rear wall this much represents a 40% extension to the length of the building. Let me be clear. Betty and I are very strong supporters of creating more housing opportunities, including converting parts of houses in our neighborhood into apartments. Unfortunately, the proposal to greatly extend the main house does not create a single new dwelling for anyone. The proposal to increase the FSI to 0.83 is a huge increase of 38.3% over the allowable FSI. This is one of a number of detailed and specific points we made in our written submission to the committee, and among the points that we raised in concerns to our future neighbors.
As a retired architect, I looked at the submission set in order to understand the details of the project. And so when I see this application, I am concerned with the sometimes sloppy plans, tables and charts, and how inconsistent and incomplete the information is. I'll give an example. The enclosed garage underneath the laneway suite is, as you know, an ancillary structure. The proposed size is 59.84 square meters, nearly 60 square meters. However, the total allowable area for all ancillary buildings or structure on a lot with frontages less than 12 meters is 40 square meters. So the proposed garage is to increase the allowable 40 square meters to nearly 60 square meters. That's 50%. However, this is not mentioned in the zoning notice, nor in any of the applicant's charts. So Michael and I strongly support laneway suites, but this proposal is to demolish the existing garage and build a brand new garage with a laneway suite on top of it. So what we don't understand is why a brand new building could not meet the zoning regulations. And I also believe that many errors, omissions, and misrepresentations in this proposal undermines the proposal as a whole.
For example, both the survey they show and the site plan A 1.0, plus 2 of the images that they just showed in the presentation, visually misrepresent the size of our own one-story addition. This creates an impression that their proposed extension doesn't go much farther out than ours does, when in fact it would extend 5 feet past ours. Ours is 10 feet, or just under that actually. We pointed this out several times in our cordial email exchanges with our neighbors and their builder, but unfortunately this was never corrected. Here's the impact on us. This proposed extension is 2 stories tall, and with the proposed privacy decks on the privacy walls on the deck, it would create a 3-story tall, 15-foot long blank wall along our shared lot line. This tall and wide blank wall will be our view from our back windows and our backyard. And particularly in the winter, this will block all direct light into our 2nd and 3rd story windows until the middle of the afternoon.
I'll ask you to make your final comments now, please.
We oppose this application.
Yes, and as the application states, this lot is too small for the size of the main house. We agree completely. We think this is inappropriate. It's not compatible with the lot size, nor the zoning regulations, nor with the size of the other houses in the area, nor with the backs of the other single-family homes to its north and south. We urge the Committee of Adjustment to reject this application for these variances as they currently stand. Thank you very much for giving the opportunity to us to voice our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for being so respectful of the timing. Perfect. Okay, panel members. Questions here? Okay, go ahead. Ms. Chan, yeah.
It's not a question. I know one of the opposition in this case. I would declare conflict of interest because I don't feel comfortable take part in the discussion or the decision making. So I declare conflicts here.
Okay, so you may wish to then back out of the panel for this. So Ms. Chan is not going to be in the panel on this application because of prior knowledge of acquaintance with one of the applicants. Okay, fine. Very good. We still have quorum, and we'll carry on now to the next registered speaker.
Heather, you've been unmuted, and you may turn on your video.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Very clearly. State your name.
Thank you. My name is Heather Campbell. I live at 102 Delaware Avenue, which is 2 houses or approximately 9 meters north of the subject property. I will be brief in that I would just draw the committee's attention to the written submission that I provided, which makes reference to a 2018 report, which was subsequently revised in 2021, which raises the city's concern about properties in the residential context in particular that are increasing the non-plantable square footage on properties in the City of Toronto. I'm not sure if the committee has a copy of that letter. I wasn't sure if I heard it being referenced.
Just go ahead with your comments, please. The committee has the materials that were read out at the beginning of this.
Perfect. Thank you. I won't use up the committee's time then, only to please ask them to make reference to the concerns I raised in that letter and to note that I haven't had an opportunity to meet the applicants. I too am interested in having a positive relationship with my neighbors. However, I have not had an opportunity to meet them, and I'm concerned that I have not heard or read any compelling reasons for why the proposed variances are necessary in keeping and with concern for the amount of non-permeable ground cover that will be the consequence of this application. So I would ask the committee to please take into account
this report by the City of Toronto and the directions that have been given to the wards with respect to increasing the canopy for the City of Toronto, and question whether or not this is in fact an application that is, as other folks have pointed out, not minor at all, but rather has a huge impact on the nature of this neighborhood and on the nature of how these properties in the neighborhood are used. Thank you.
Thank you. Panel members, questions for this speaker? I'm not hearing any. Okay, thank you, Speaker. At this
Thank you.
Moderator, are there any further registered speakers standing by in opposition?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's all the registered speakers for this item.
Thank you. Okay, then, we shall now then return to the applicant, who will have an opportunity to respond in rebuttal to the issues that were raised by the various registered speakers we've just heard from. Let's go back to the agent, please.
Hi, Mr. Chair. Sure thing. So I will speak in the priority sequence. I will begin with the 96 Delaware Avenue. So I just want to point it out here that in their presentation material, they actually just focused within 8 houses around us, just to show how far back our house goes. And once again, right, we're not actually seeking a building depth variance. We're seeking for an FSI variance. And in the presentation material, they said that the FSI we're seeking here is 23% above the permitted require, which it is an error. We're only seeking here for 14.3%, as I've mentioned previously, since when building in a rear addition, we're allowed to go to 69%, but we're going to 83.3%, as I've mentioned it. And then I also just want to point it out that in the reference image, where they show some images in reference to how far back we would go. That picture has actually been taken from their kitchen, like they've mentioned themselves, which is roughly located within the middle of the property, as opposed to be very close to the back of the house. So that is a little bit misleading. And then also in terms of, I just want to move now to 100 Delaware. They've talked about lot coverage issue. It's not a variance, right? We're not really seeking a lot coverage variance here. In fact, lot coverage is not even an applicable bylaw for this area specifically. Michael stated on his presentation that we're increasing it by 38%, which again, it's not the case. Our FSI here, we're increasing by 14.3%. They've also mentioned about the square footage of the garage itself, which again, it's not a variance. And I just want to highlight that when dealing with laneway suites, the bylaws are different from when dealing with an ancillary building, which is, again, that's not why it's not a variance. As per their survey question or comments, I might say, that has been fixed. I did take action immediately, but they took the surveyors a little long to go to their property and fix a survey. And the updated set of plans have been updated to files. So you have access to that updated site plan, which shows the actual depth of 100 Delaware Avenue, and it's bubbled on the site plan. And a copy of the survey have also been provided to the city, so you can, it's available for anyone to see it. We're not trying to be deceiving here. Again, we've contacted the surveyor immediately after the fact. We were not notified, but it took them a little longer than we wanted to before they were able to update that. And I think the update came through on March 29th. So the survey, the site plan we have here in front of us, it's outdated. The updated one is, it's March 29th. As per the privacy screen concern that our neighbors here at 100 Delaware have raised, a privacy screen is required by the City of Toronto, right? Like, it's not something that we've added just simply because we wanted. We did it because it is a requirement by the City of Toronto. Our clients, however, are more than willing to reduce the height of that privacy screen. In fact, I was talking to our clients, and they're willing to even make that a glass a guardrail if needed be. They do not mind at all. And now, last but not least, in terms of the soft landscaping variance, again, it's a very technical variance, right? Because when you look at the numbers alone, we're required to provide 80.53 square meters, and we're providing 77.23 square meters. So it's a very minor difference. And I just want to highlight here that the only reason the soft landscaping regulation is a variance is because we're dealing with a laneway suite. If we were to be building just a two-car garage, the building itself would automatically be smaller. Therefore,
I shall ask you to make your
the
final...
soft landscaping would be different.
I shall ask you to make your final comments now, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the soft landscape regulation would be different, and we would not be a variance. We would be above the 50% minimum required for rear yard soft landscaping. And yeah, so that's all that I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Panel members, questions for the applicant? Hearing none, we can take the application into committee to discuss and move toward a motion. Unless someone's ready with a motion now. Mr. Black, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to comment first. What's before us, and having heard all the members of the community that have presented their views in opposition, I come back to the fact that we've got three variances in front of us. And as I read them, the variances are all relatively minor, and ones that I cannot easily say, well, you know, these are ones that I think are excessive. So I think these are variances that are supportable because these are the ones that are in front of us. As I think the agent mentioned, one of the concerns that a couple of people raised was the depth of the building, but there's no variance for depth as far as we are presented with. So I think this is a supportable application as it's presented to us.
Thank you, Mr. Byatt. Okay. Mr. Reed.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I agree with Zahir. I think these variances are minor compared to what we see regularly and just compare on their face. The fact that there is no length or depth or rear yard setback variance, that gives me a lot of comfort, particularly because that was a concern of the neighbors. The length is permitted, and that's not even up for discussion. So, and then the laneway suite variance is less than half a meter in terms of the width, but this is a wide lot for a downtown neighborhood. I think it's actually a refined proposal that fits in well. I think, yes, it's a bigger house than is there now, but I think the variances required for that are minor.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. And my thoughts echo yours. We are looking at the three variances that are before us and deciding those ones whether they meet our four tests, and in my mind they do. So I look to one of you to go forward with a motion, please. Mr. Reed, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to move a motion for approval of the application with no conditions.
And that is seconded by Mr. Byatt. So it is moved and seconded to approve. All in favor, please show hands. And that vote is unanimous to carry the motion and to approve the application. Excuse, I had to recuse. Yeah, sure. There you are. She had to recuse on that. Okay, very good. We move on to number 40, 245 Dunn Avenue. On this application before the panel are the following materials. Those submitted with the application. Cover letter from the agent. December 2022 and March 2023. Building profile from Toronto Community Housing. Parking study, BA Group. Presentation materials from the agent. And a site-specific bylaw that relates to the property. There's comment from community planning and also from transportation services. So, let's have the agent join us, please.
Can you hear me okay?
Tharmia, you've been unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we do hear you. Could you state your name, please?
Yes, my name is Tharmia Kanagathasan. I'm the Senior Development Planner at Creatio.
Very good. Okay, then, panel members. On this application, do we have any questions? I'm not hearing any. Agent, is there anything in particular we should know about the application?
Just that Creatio is making this application on behalf of Toronto Community Housing Corporation as the property owner. We don't have any planning concerns submitted. You may have also seen the reports from Community Planning and Transportation Services in support of the application. I'm happy to go through any questions that you may have or our presentation materials if you wish.
Thank you so much. Okay, appreciate it. I'm not hearing any requests for that, so panel members, is anyone ready with a motion with respect to this application? Ms. Chan, go ahead.
Yes, I read the report of the community planning and also transportation. I think they both are urging us to approve because they're actually in the middle of a very long site plan approval process. So I don't have any concern with this application. I would like to make a motion to approve with no conditions.
And that is seconded by Mr. Byatt. It is therefore moved and seconded to approve. All in favor, please indicate showing hands. Okay, motion carries, unanimous vote, and the application is approved. Number 41 is 26 Garnock Avenue. And on 26 Garnock Avenue, we have the application package materials, cover letter from the agent. There's a decision affecting the property by COA 2022. There is a TLAB decision affecting the property. There's an arborist report and urban forestry clearance letter. Let's have the agent join us.
Lynn, you've been unmuted.
Okay, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Clearly. Very nicely. State your name, please.
Lynn Houston, I'm from 49 Oakcrest Avenue. I'm the agent and applicant for this proposal.
Very good. Okay, panel members. Anyone like a presentation on this? Any questions? No. I'm just going to ask you, Agent, briefly, just to go through to explain to us this idea that there was a previous Committee of Adjustment error and why this application went to TLAB. Just quickly, please.
Oh, the error on the original C of A was a statement of 9.2 meter height, whereas all the submitted application information was 9.92. This was not caught by myself or anyone else. until I submitted for building permit. So we've had to come back and have that typo corrected, essentially. T-Lab was settled. We will be building exactly as T-Lab decisions were made. We just need this one fix made to make all the paperwork proper.
I still want to know why it went to T-Lab. I mean, there was...
Oh, what the neighbors
okay.
did not approve.
The neighbors.
And they took it, both sides actually. One on the trees and the other side on the area.
Thank you, now it makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then if there are no questions, panel, let's take it into committee for a motion, please. Mr. Byatt, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I think when I was reading this one, I also realized this is a technical matter. And as the agent has explained further, that explained the technicality of the technical issue. And there's no problem in recommending that this application be approved without any conditions. So I'd be happy to move forward.
Thank you. That is seconded by Mr. Reid. Moved and seconded to approve. Please, all in favor, show of hands. Vote is unanimous to carry the motion. Application approved. Number 42 is the final item on today's agenda, and it deals with 206 CEDRIC Avenue. The materials before us include a copy of the minutes from the October 26, 2022 public hearing, copy of the plan of survey, revised site plan, floor plans, elevations, plus 26 photographs of comparable builds on CEDRIC and on CEDRIC Avenue from Yanulkar Canizales. And there is a staff report from Transportation Services. Okay, and on this one, I'll just check with you, moderator. Do we have one person standing by in interest?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we were unable to locate the registered speakers by phone or email.
Thank you for trying. Okay, so there's no one standing by in interest. Okay. Let's go to the agent. Please state your name.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. You're with the committee now.
Sorry. Yes, I've been here for the last hour. I don't know why I'm not showing. My name is Yanulkar Canizales on behalf of the owners of 206 CEDRIC.
Okay. You're with the committee now, and you have our full attention. Let me just ask my panel colleagues if they have any questions for you. Mr. Byatt, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. When I was looking through this particular application, one of the things that struck me was I was looking at variance number 6 and 7, and I looked at the numbers, and then I looked at the deferred package, and I hope I'm not confused, but the variances in the deferred package from October 2022, and the numbers seem to be lower in the variances requested this time as opposed to the ones that were refused. Can you just speak to that? Am I correct?
Yes, they're not much smaller. They're slightly smaller. It's because in the previous application, there was a problem with comments from transportation about the parking inside that was not completely inside the property line. So we make the corrections. The changes are basically we slip the stair and accommodate the parking inside the property line. So in these adjustments, we kind of reduce some of the spaces, and that was the final square footage for the home, but it's basically the same number of rooms, number of floors. It's just a little bit of adjustment on the areas and the length, just because we redesigned the location of the stair.
Thank you. I was a bit puzzled. Thanks.
Yes, it's not because we changed the program of the house. It's just to try to adjust all the variables.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Reed, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just trying to understand the building. From the floor plans, it appears that the second and third floors cantilever out over the ground floor, but it doesn't seem to show in the elevations. Could you just describe that to me?
Yes, it's because on one side the house has a right of way. So on the ground floor plan, you can see the footprint of the house, it's smaller. And then on the second, on the third, towards the north of the house, it cantilevers out. And also to the east side, it cantilevers a little, like 30 inches.
Right. But looking at the front elevation, the east elevation, I'm not seeing that. Or am I just not reading the drawing right?
Yeah, you can see in the east elevation, when that's the front elevation. So you can see where the second floor starts. There's a wider band, like a decorative band from the cladding that separates the ground floor from the second floor. So in the back elevation, you don't see that because it's the wider portion of the house there. From that elevation, you can see that white band that continues. So at the end is where the house aligns, but you can see where the two windows, vertical windows are. That's the second and the third floor cantilevering out.
Okay. Okay. So from the front, that window that's on the ground floor on the right-hand side, that's at the back.
Yes.
That's not the
front. So if you see, if you see.
I understand.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. I'm not hearing any more.
Do you have any other questions? No.
I'm not hearing any more questions.
Sorry.
Mr. Reed, go ahead.
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, I have one more. So there's also the conditions from transportation.
Yes.
Can you speak to your view on that and your?
Yes, the first from the previous submission, they were talking about the parking part, the parking pad, sorry, in the front yard, because in the original submission, part of the parking was in the front setback. And we kind of adjusted the curb to enter the parking. So the comment was they didn't agree with the changes on the curb and the parking being in the front setback. So that's when the second submission comes. We revised, we adjusted the entrance to the house and the stair of the house, and we managed to provide the parking right in front of the house. On that note, there's from zoning. One of the comments of the last letter from the zoning department was that the parking wasn't allowed in the front of the house, and we're asking for this to be, approved, because basically the site is very narrow. It's not possible to park at the back of the property. The only way is at the front, and the site is very small to provide that on-the-ground parking or parking on the ground floor level. So we are providing it right in front of the house, but within the limits of the property.
Okay.
So those two comments that transportation had the previous submission, we corrected them this time, and I even sent copy of the second submission to transportation to Mr. Sparrow, so he can look at it, and he said he had no objections.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, then. I think we're ready at this stage to go into committee and move forward to a motion. Is anyone ready with a motion? Mr. Byatt, please proceed.
Sure, thank you, Chair. I think the last explanation in response to Mr. Reed's question was well answered, because it's also one of the items in the supplementary package. It's kind of the last thing in the package. I think this is a highly supportable application, and I'd be quite happy to move forward with a motion. I don't believe there are any conditions because the transportation ones have already been met, and transportation doesn't have is supporting the application. So I'll move forward with a motion to approve without condition.
Thank you. And that is seconded by Ms. Chen. It is therefore moved and seconded to approve without condition. All in favor, please. Show of hands. And that motion is carried by a unanimous vote. The application is approved. And with that, at 6:07, the panel completes its agenda for the day. To staff, great work, great preparation, great execution today. Thank you. And to the panel members, many, many thanks as always for sticking with it. Ms. Chen, yeah, did you want to say something, Im?
No, I just say thank you. I did. It's been a nice day. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes. Thank you kindly, and apologies for my technical issues.
Have a great long weekend, everyone. Be safe.
Yeah, you too. You too.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.